ready to start. A little feedback. Good evening. Welcome everybody to the June 25th, 2025 meeting of the Quincy Planning Board. To start, I'll take roll call.
Ali Shaughnessy, present.
John Kelly, present.
Larry Liuzzo, present.
Kimberly Beelan, present.
Christopher Meade, present.
PJ Foley, present.
Great. Pursuant to the open meeting law, any person may make an audio or video recording of this public meeting or may transmit the meeting through any medium. Attendees are therefore advised that such recordings or transmissions are being made, whether perceived or unperceived, by those present and are deemed acknowledged and permissible. The board requests that you please be courteous to the proceedings and turn off your cell phones. Applicants and project teams are expected to dress in a professional manner when presenting before the planning board. We don't usually read that, or I don't usually read that, but feel free to not wear your jackets tonight because it is very warm. The planning board reserves the right to administer oaths through the chair, summon witnesses, call for the production of papers, cross-examine any person giving testimony during the proceedings, declare recess, limit debate, inspect the subject site or buildings during reasonable hours, and adjourn the hearing for cause. The order of business will be as announced by myself. All questions should be directed through me. Any person wishing to speak, please raise your hand for recognition. When recognized, please stand, state your name and address, specific interests in the proceedings, and special credentials, if any, pertaining to the presentation. Please speak slowly and within the context of the hearing matter. The hearing is being stenographed and taped for the public record, and the planning board reserves the right to exclude any unnecessary, irrelevant, repetitive, or harassing presentations. So the first item on the agenda is the vote on the minutes of the May 21st meeting.
I'll move to accept the minutes of the May 21st meeting.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, so that's unanimous. And the first public hearing on the agenda is a continued public hearing, 90 School Street Planning Board case number 2025-01. And while Attorney Harrington makes his way up, I'll just note that we did receive correspondence today. Dear Mr. Fatsis, on behalf of the applicant, I'm requesting to withdraw without prejudice the above application. The applicant will be submitting a revised set of plans to reduce the unit count and make further revisions to the site plan to address the areas of outstanding concern. Mr. Harrington.
Thank you. Madam Chair, board members, thank you for being here tonight. As stated, we've come to the conclusion in the last 60 days that this particular building, that this project does not have the support of this board in order to pass, and so we've asked to withdraw without prejudice, to put a new set of plans in. Our intention is to submit to you a smaller building with fewer units and increased yard setbacks. And that's our plan, that's the direction we're going in. And if any of you have a comment or a suggestion while we're here, we're all ears. We want to make sure that when we come back that we bring you something that you like, that you're happy with, and that you'll be happy to vote yes on if we've answered all your questions.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
I just have one thing. Working on a lot of MBTA properties, Mr. Harrington. I believe that property's probably under the MBTA influence area.
It is.
So please make sure you have your permit ready when you come in, because our time is valuable. And we've seen this project a couple times already. So please have all your ducks in line when you come back next time.
We have already submitted the plans to the MBTA months ago,
Okay.
and
They take years
waiting for them to assign an engineer to be the person to review it. So we have given them the plans of the old building. The newer building will have fewer issues that impact the MBTA.
Well, they're gonna wanna see the newer building before you bring it before the board too, so I would probably get those and bring it into them and then get their approval and then come in front of the board.
I'm not sure we're gonna be able to get their approval before we come here. We have to get approval from someone first.
We have a building down the street right now that's sitting because they didn't get the approval. Sitting right down the street. Bed and electric.
I understand that.
So,
I
again,
don't disagree
my
with
time
you.
is very valuable. I don't know about yours.
Mhm.
So, thank you.
Yep.
Anyone else? Okay, I would just say that, the frontage, the front setback is, I think, a significant area of concern that has not been adequately addressed, and there's a telephone pole that's out front that I think needs to be addressed as well. So those are at least the big, there's a number of issues, but those would be the big
Yes.
ones I would highlight. So with that, do we have a motion to accept the withdrawal without
Motion
prejudice?
to accept?
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right, so the next item on the agenda is another continued public hearing, 506 South Street, Planning Board Case Number 2025-08. Attorney Fleming.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the board. For the record, my name is Edward Fleming. I'm here on behalf of the applicant for 506 South Street. The applicant's name is South Street Assets LLC. I'm joined tonight by Brian Donahue and Chi Mann. Brian is the architect on the proposal and Chi is the civil engineer. Since we were last here, we took into consideration all of the comments and concerns that this board raised, the concerns that the Mayos raised about parking, and some significant changes were made to the plans. Those concerns that were raised last time were parking. There were green space. I know the chairman raised concerns about the setback of the parking from the abutting property owner's parcel, the configuration of the lot, and the overall number of units. So significant changes were made to the plans, and I'm gonna let Brian kind of walk through those changes. But I want this body to know, and I want the Mayos to know, that we took those concerns to heart in making the changes. And we're hopeful that you're gonna see that this is an improved project, that it provides better parking ratio for the proposal, and that it provides some exterior outside space. I know, Mr. Foley, you raised a question about maybe even being able to utilize the roof because there wasn't a ton of green space on the site, and you'll see that this proposal now creates some exterior amenity patio space that I think is a great amenity for the residents. So Brian, you wanna just?
Madam Chair, members of the board, Brian Donahue, Donahue Architects here in Quincy. I will be brief and try and concentrate on the revisions that we've made and how we've addressed the concerns that the board had at the last hearing. Chi Mann is here for any questions regarding drainage and civil aspects of things, but I'll just deal with what we've made architecturally as well as to the overall site concept. So what we did was we realigned the parking situation. We've gone from 21 units to 18 by removing a quadrant of the building in the left rear, as you can see, the left end of the building. So that is a reduction in square footage on each level of over 580 square feet. So we're reducing the number of units by 3 from 21 to 18 and reducing the square footage by close to 1,600 square feet, 1,600, sorry. So what that does was it also opens up the building to a little bit more outdoor space for the residents, and it creates more outdoor space for the enjoyment of the people that live there. Also, on the left side along the property line, you can see that we've removed the parallel spaces and greened that up tremendously. We've also moved the transformer from the front of the building by the drive over to the island by that left side parking. So the green space, I'll bring up the landscape plan in a second, but that shows that we've also gone from 35 spaces to 33, but we think that that's reasonable in light of the fact that we've reduced the number of units. There are still 21 spaces in the parking garage below. This basically gives you that first level plan. So this amenity space is, patio space is available to all the residents to use. The renderings show what we're doing. The lower left shows how we've taken that quadrant of the building out and made that a public space for the unit owners. I'd also like to address your concern, Madam Chair, about the size of, this may be an incidental issue, but you had commented about the trash room being small. So we doubled the size of that for the bins, and that's gone from 60 square feet to 110 square feet. So we did that without losing space. It was really an easy manipulation. So the transformer was moved. We've got a significant amount of green space, as you can see from the front renderings, the upper right, that we've got a terraced green space by the entryway and decent-sized shade trees along the east perimeter of the building. I think that's it in terms of the architectural changes.
Just want to highlight real briefly on this. Madam Chair, you had raised a concern about this, and it was really kind of hard to understand how much space that was. That's actually 3 feet in width, so it's not right up against the property line, and there will be a fence installed as well. And we can certainly discuss the fencing with the neighbor, whether or not the fence be brought in onto our site or onto the neighbor's property to provide them with that additional green space along their lot. And we talked about, I know there was concerns raised about the transformer that was kind of buried in this location in the front of the building. After talking with National Grid, they changed their mind, that wasn't a good space for it. And so we relocated it to the corner of the parking lot, and we directed our landscape architect to really green up that, around that transformer so that it will really be shaded by the green, so it will not be sticking out as an eyesore. But that opens up the front of that building now to really be a lot more attractive as it was before. And this exterior patio space, I think, is really responsive to Mr. Foley's concern or comments too about having some exterior space that these folks can enjoy. And as you can see, this is a significant amount of lawn in the back that's going to provide for trash receptacles, so that folks can walk out into this area and utilize this lawn space for their dogs, for their pets.
That's basically the presentation on the changes.
And Mr. Mann responded to all the department comments and the peer review comments, and so if there's any questions of engineering, he's certainly here to answer any questions that you may have.
Okay, let me see if anybody has questions. Questions? No? Okay, neither do I. So this is a public hearing. Anybody wishing to speak on this application may come up to the podium. There's also sign-in sheets if you want to sign in for or against comment. Sure.
Good evening, everyone, and thank you for allowing me to get my piece out here. As you know, I've been here before, and,
Just for the record,
Thanks.
sir. Sorry, could you just repeat your name and your address?
oh, I'm
for the
sorry, I
record?
thought I
No,
did.
that's okay.
My name is Jack Mayo. I live on Claremont Avenue, right in the vicinity of where this is being proposed to be built. I do not understand how this is feasible to do this. I really don't. I brought up at the last meeting I was at here that it's like trying to put 10 pounds of sugar in a 5-pound bag. I don't think that's changed. I think it's admirable that they've decided to go from 21 to 18 units. Now, if they could just eliminate 18 more, it would be perfect. But the fact of the matter is that, you know, I'm an 86-year-old man. I'm not as agile on my feet as I used to be, but I still know right from wrong, and this is wrong. No matter how anyone wants to go express it, I have a lot more knowledgeable people here than myself who can address this more eloquently, I'm sure. But I still think I can get some of my points across. And one of the things is right across the street at 23 Claremont, which I believe is owned by the same people. And that they're putting 2 townhouses right there. Now you're gonna have 18 more units here. No matter how you look at it, no matter how you tell me that we've got 1 point so many spaces for cars and so on, the fact of the matter is, we're talking about putting anywhere from 40 to 50 more cars in an already heavily congested area. And I just do not understand how that this can possibly be a good idea to do this. I think it's a beautiful building, but it doesn't belong on a lot like this. The city of Quincy just recently took over the property that used to be the Acapulco restaurant and put a nice little park there. Why don't we take that lot of land and put a nice little park there for the community to be able to use? You know, these kinds of things are just, I have a hard time understanding how this can be presented in a way that it is good for the community. It's not. What about one aspect that I don't think has been addressed at all? What about quality of life? It's nice that they got a building here, and now they're gonna put some trees down at the end, have a nice area where the people in the building can go out. What about the people that live in the community? And we gotta put up with this, and we gotta live with it. Once it's there for keeps, and there's nothing we can do about it. I think it's just, we need to step up and say, what about the quality of life of the people who live in that neighborhood? And it's just, it shouldn't be done. As I said, I know right from wrong. I'm old enough to know that, and I know this is wrong. I just know it's wrong. And I would say one other thing in leaving before I finish my remarks. The people who live on this thing, one of the things that was brought up was that it was too close to the property of the people that live in the homes on Claremont Avenue. It's still too close to those people. But those people right now can look out their back windows, and you know what they can see in the morning? They can see the sun rising. Put a big apartment building right outside their window, what are they gonna see? They're looking at a wall of an apartment building. Think about these kind of things before you give them the okay to do this. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Anyone else here wishing to speak on this? No? Counselor?
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, members of the board. Richard Ash, 7 Silver Street, Ward 2 City Councilor. I spoke on this proposal when it was before you in April. I held a community meeting on it, and actually 2 with the previous proposal and this subsequent meeting with respect to this proposal, which has now been amended, I think, twice. I did have some questions before I give kind of my commentary. Is the Attorney Fleming, are they still, the units still going to be condominiums?
Yeah.
Okay. And I noticed in the, this is the Hardy Man, the report here. Under this current proposal, the iteration of it, is a parking waiver still requested?
A parking waiver is still requested.
Okay. It will not be sought at the ZBA, is that right?
That's right.
Okay. I noticed that there's a note of 2 handicap parking spaces. Wondering kind of what happens on the property if there aren't any, but if there are no handicap individuals living there, and how best to utilize.
Nobody can use them. You can't park it.
Okay.
Unless you have
And is that, I guess now I'm just being rhetorical, but maybe that could be something that could be reviewed after they're purchased with the HOA, I assume, but that isn't really grounds or fodder for this discussion. The 18 bicycle spaces, I was wondering if maybe those could be better utilized as additional parking, or if that has already been discussed and looked into.
The area where we have those now is not a place where we can put spaces. It's not big enough to put parking.
Okay.
And I think the trend is to provide more in terms of like bicycle spaces in the current climate.
Okay. I think the previous proposal was 21 units and 35 parking spaces. This is 21. I'm sorry, this is, I mixed that up. The previous proposal was 21 units and 35 parking spaces. I believe this proposal is 18 units and 33. I think more parking on the surface, which I don't believe is going to be a shock to any of you, that I think there needs to be more parking. There are a number of proposals in the area that have come through recently at the various boards that will significantly change the makeup of the community and put more cars in the area. You heard Mr. Mayo discuss 23 Claremont. There's also been other proposals in that vicinity. You have the Islamic Center of New England right there, which we discussed prior, that adds a good amount of traffic and cars to the neighborhood. I would like to see maybe a few less units and more parking. I do appreciate the amendments to the plan, but as Mr. Mayo discussed, it is a very big building for that particular parcel. And I don't think it would come as a shock to say that I would like to see it a little smaller in size, a few less units and more parking. But in any event, thank you for the opportunity, and I appreciate being able to work with the team behind the proposal. I do think it is appealing to the eye, and certainly looks like a great design if it was a bit smaller. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak on this application? No? Attorney Fleming, do you want to
Could I just make
wrap it up?
just two comments? And I certainly hear the councilors' concerns and comments about parking, as well as the mayor's as well. In analyzing the parking, we asked both our traffic engineer and the city's traffic engineer and the peer review engineer to kind of review the parking to determine whether or not the parking that was provided initially for the 21 units was sufficient. And both our engineer, our traffic engineer, and the city's peer review traffic engineer both indicated that at 21 units, the parking was sufficient to provide for adequate parking for this proposal. So I understand, parking is always an issue of concern in the community, but we think that this parking, unlike some of the apartment buildings, can be controlled with the sale of the units. And that by assigning spaces to folks that are seeking to purchase the units, and where they're seeking for additional parking spaces, they will be turned away, so that the owner will have an opportunity to manage the parking much better in a condominium sale. The other thing that's really important about the density that's being provided here, and David and Cindy, the owners of this property, have indicated to me very clearly, is they want to actually list these below market rate. They think that there's absolute an appetite in the Quincy Point area for housing. They think that because at this density, they believe they can provide a lot of these units under market value. Any additional units being removed from this, making it less dense, causes the applicant to lose the ability to market it in that fashion. So we think that this is going to provide really much needed housing at below market rate. So I just wanted to make those two comments.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Does anybody else?
Can I?
Oh.
I guess I just had a question. Sorry, this is informal. Is that going to be formally marketed as affordable, or?
They're not affordable in the sense of meeting the criteria of affordable, but their intentions are to market it below market rate. And market rate for a lot of us seems like, $500,000 plus for a condominium seems to be a lot of money, but when the units in Quincy are selling for $650,000 plus, David indicated to me that he intends to market these under $600,000, which will give people an opportunity for housing in the Thank you.
Okay. Any additional public comment on this? Okay. So does anybody have any? Does the board want to have discussion, or are you good to close? Okay. All right, so is there a motion to close?
Motion to close?
Second? Any?
Second.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And just, I guess, two comments. One, I thought it was very smart to put the patio over and not reduce your parking underneath. I think that's a good use of space. And I would just note, this is in the Business B zoning district, so, I mean, there's a lot of other uses that can be made of the site that are, I think, probably more noxious adjacent to residences. And so, just keeping that in mind, I think it's an appropriate use. Obviously not single-family residences, but at least residential in nature. So I just wanted to make those comments. So with that, does the department have a recommendation?
Yes, Madam Chair, through you to the board. After consideration of the site plan, accompanying documents, and the comments received from the city staff and peer review, the department recommends the board approve site plan review under Quincy zoning ordinance, Title 17, Section 9.5.1, and special permit under Section 5.1.17 parking waiver, subject to the below listed special and general conditions. Condition 1, the applicant shall obtain all applicable findings, variances, and special permits if needed from the City of Quincy Zoning Board of Appeal. 2, the applicant shall comply with the City of Quincy inclusionary zoning ordinance, Section 7. The applicant shall submit an IZO application to the Affordable Housing Trust Fund Committee prior to the issuance of a building permit. A decision by the Affordable Housing Trust Fund Committee shall be made on the subject property prior to the issuance of a temporary or final occupancy permit. 3, the applicant shall submit a construction management plan to be filed and approved prior to the issuance of a building permit. This shall include the locations of stockpile and/or staging areas for construction equipment and materials. The applicant shall also address construction period traffic impacts by providing a detailed sequence of construction and addressing any space constraints, detailing how they'll be addressed as construction progresses. 4, prior to the issuance of a building permit, the applicant shall perform a water flow test with the city's water department. 5, prior to the issuance of a building permit, the existing sewer main manhole shall be inspected with television pre-development in order to check the condition of the system. The proposed sewer service pipe and the connection to the main shall be inspected with television post-development. Television report shall be submitted to the Department of Public Works for assessment. 6, 1 week prior to any land disturbance activities, the applicant shall conduct an on-site inspection with the Department of Public Works and/or the city's designated representative to observe the erosion controls installed at the site and review erosion controls to be employed during construction. 7, the Department of Public Works or the city's designated representative shall observe the construction of the stormwater management system, the completion of excavation, upon completion of chamber and crushed stone installation, and prior to backfill. The applicant shall provide at least 72 hours notice for said inspections. Prior to the issuance, number 8, prior to the issuance of an occupancy permit, the applicant shall submit and record at the Norfolk County Registry of Deeds an operation and maintenance plan for the project stormwater system, which shall include the stormwater management system owners, a schedule for all routine and non-routine maintenance tasks to be undertaken, a snow management plan showing snow storage areas and location of all stormwater BMPs in each treatment drain along with the discharge points, any limitations of the use of salt and/or de-icing chemicals, if any, and restrictions on snow storage, stockpiling as it relates to sight lines or placement within the stormwater BMPs. Inspections shall be conducted by a qualified professional such as a civil engineer or environmental engineer. Number 9, the applicant shall conduct a pre-demolition asbestos survey for any existing structures to be demolished. If there are any asbestos-containing materials present, they must be removed by a licensed contractor, and a post-abatement inspection must be performed by a DLI-certified project monitor. A walkthrough inspection conducted by the Quincy Health Department is required prior to demolition. 10, the applicant shall consult with the Quincy Health Department on noise mitigation measures for construction-related noise-generating activities to comply with local and state regulations. 11, the applicant shall submit a written rodent control plan to the Quincy Health Department for review and approval prior to any site activity. Said plan must be designed for the duration of the project and include at minimum the name and contact information of a licensed pest control operator to be retained by the project proponent for the duration of the project. Scope of the proposed plan for the control of rodents included number, location, and monitoring frequency of bait stations, as well as the anticipated length of service. Number 12, the applicant shall develop and submit a written dust control plan to the Quincy Health Department for review and approval prior to any site activity. Said dust control plan is to be implemented during any site activities to ensure compliance with state air quality regulations. 13, applicant shall comply with the City of Quincy tree ordinance. 14, the applicant shall install stone or concrete monuments to delineate the public right-of-way. The monuments shall be set by a professional land surveyor. 15, the applicant shall submit an AutoCAD file for the project prior to the issuance of a building permit. Files should be in Mass State Plane Coordinate System and preferably in Quincy Standard Data Layers. 16, upon completion of the construction, the applicant shall submit a report including certified as-built plan from a professional engineer or surveyor certifying that the stormwater management system has been constructed in accordance with the approved plans. The report should include a certification that the excavations of the proposed system were inspected prior to backfilling. The applicant shall also provide the city engineer the digital file as-built plan showing all utilities, building footprints, reference bounds, benchmarks defining the total site, facilities, and right-of-way along with the AutoCAD file. The as-built plan shall be in Mass State Plane Coordinate System. The plan should be stamped and signed by a professional land surveyor or engineer. Upon completion of the project, the applicant shall submit a written stamped affidavit from a registered professional engineer that all the utilities, water, sewer, and drain are constructed as designed and no illicit connections are found on the completed project site. That would conclude the department's recommendation.
Great, thank you. Does anybody have any questions? Does anybody have a motion?
Motion to approve the recommendations.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, so member Kelly and member Foley, all those in favor? Aye. And any opposed? Okay, great. Thank you very much. Okay, so the next item on the agenda is also a continued public hearing. It's 21 Weston Avenue.
Yes, it's going to be one of those nights. Sorry. Madam Chair, members of the board, again, for the record, I'm here on behalf of the applicant for 21 Weston Avenue, which is a proposed extra space storage facility. I'm joined by Dave Williams and Mike Dryden. Dave Williams from the applicant, and Mike Dryden is our project engineer. All I want to do tonight is just highlight the elevation changes that we made. Last time we were here, I think there were comments made about the overall style and architectural amenities of the building. There was some discussion about trying to bring in some of the additional extra space green and also adding some windows to the facility. So these elevations provide the board with a better visual image of some of the changes that have been made to the plans, adding some of the green amenities from the extra space coloring, and also these windows that were, this entire facade here was essentially all just blank space. And by adding those windows, it gives it a little bit more residential feel in consideration of some of the neighborhood. Again, some of the additional window space in green was added to the building. So that's really the only change that we made. I think overall the response was very good that we received from the board and from the community. Mr. Dryden worked very hard to respond to all of the peer review comments, all of the city's department comments, had meetings with Chen Sang also about some questions that Michael had about some of the foundationary items, and was able to reach agreement with Chen on those. So that's essentially our presentation for tonight on any revisions. If there's any questions, we're certainly here to respond.
See, anyone have any questions?
Madam Chair, I
Yes.
just says, so the developers of this project, are they a national chain, are they a local chain?
David?
Self-perform?
So Extra Space Storage is the owner of the property. SDG Development, which I'm a principal of, is a development manager and general contractor. So we'll be building the facility for
So
Extra
you're
Space.
based out of Massachusetts?
We're based out of Massachusetts,
Okay.
yes.
And will you be hiring local men and women from the city of Quincy?
That's our hope. We accept bids from anybody. Since we started this process, we've had maybe 3 groups reach out to them, 2 of them local, who are put on our bidders list. And that's our intention. It's gonna come down to, what works with schedule and money and all that sort of thing, but that's our intention.
Okay, so you are putting it out to local contractors? in the
Absolutely,
area. Okay,
yes.
thank
Okay.
you.
Any other questions? No? Okay, so this is a public hearing. If anybody wishing to speak, you can come up to the podium. You can also sign in on the sign-in sheets. If anybody's thinking it over, I'll read. We did receive one public comment, and that was dated April 18th, 2025, from Mary Lally. Dear Chair and board members, I watched online the April 16th, 2025 Planning Board meeting for the 21 Weston Ave project presentation. But first I want to commend the respect and civility of the board and everyone in attendance. I was especially pleased with the way that the 482 Lion Street project was handled by working with neighbors to find a compromise that would benefit most everyone involved. I've lived at 10 Weston Ave for 15 years and commute to work daily by walking down Weston Ave to the Wollaston Station parking lot. I've made well over 1,000 trips past the parking lot at 21 Weston Ave. Below, I have noted several positives of the project. 1, the new storage facility would finally replace the chain link fence and the long-term storage of vehicles along the south side of the lot, which would be a significant improvement to the neighborhood. 2, Weston Ave is a tree desert. The new storage facility would serve as shade to folks walking on Weston Ave to and from the Wollaston Station. Extreme heat is real and increasing. I speak from experience as I had heat exhaustion and I wasn't sure if I would make it the final few yards to my home. 3, the new storage facility would aid in buffering the noise of the Red Line and commuter rail. My questions and concerns of the project. 1, what is the height difference between the new facility and the old facility? How long will the shadow extend on the neighbors across the street? At 10 Weston Ave, we have a small courtyard that folks enjoy using for fresh air and sunlight. While I want to provide shade for the sidewalks, I don't want to remove sunlight for neighbors who want to garden. 2, I was pleased that the project will provide necessary lighting to the daycare center. That is being a good neighbor. I would like to request that generosity be extended to include lighting along the Weston Ave frontage. The lighting provided by the city has always been insufficient at that end of Weston Ave. When the time changes each fall, getting home from work at 6 p.m. requires pedestrians to face a dark walk until we reach Chester Street. I used a flashlight because the street and sidewalk were in such rough shape and I wanted to avoid trips and falls. Having additional lighting would be welcome. 3, it has been some time, but I recall 18-wheelers entering and exiting the parking lot with pretty much a straight shot across Weston Ave to Chester Street. They had ample room in the parking lot to navigate. I am unclear how 18-wheelers will enter and exit with the new storage facility. Will they be able to manage to safely enter and exit, all the while avoiding striking pedestrians? 4, the second new driveway appears to be opposite the 10 Weston Ave dumpster area. We have trash pickups at least 3 days a week. During the construction phase, can arrangements be made so that the construction crew does not park across from the 10 Weston Ave dumpster area? If there is an issue, can we get contact numbers so our building super can contact someone on site? 5, if the property owner wants to be a wicked awesome neighbor, would they agree to plow the sidewalk along Weston Ave and clear away snow and ice? In the past, the building management did very little to clear the sidewalks along their side of the street, especially the driveway where melting ice would cascade down from the parking area onto the driveway and freeze so that you need ice skates to traverse. If they plow the entire sidewalk and include the daycare center sidewalk, they can add to the city's pile of snow at the corner of Weston and Wayland Street or MBTA's snow pile because that is where they pile their snow as well. No one likes noise or change unless it personally benefits them. I think this project will benefit residents so long as everyone works together and listen to issues that develop over the course of the project. Thank you for your attention to this matter. Sincerely, Mary Lowley. And so would anyone else like to speak on this for the public comment? No. Attorney Fleming, do you want to address any of those, or she does have her contact information if you want to reach out and address her questions?
We can certainly, I think that's certainly something we can continue to work with the neighbors on, issues related to clearing sidewalks, making that area safer, adding some lighting potentially in the front to light up that roadway. We can certainly work with the neighbors like that. And what we'll do is, with her information, we'll pass contact information on to not only David and his group, but also to the folks that are going to be operating the facility afterwards. Great. The other thing that I just wanted to clarify, and this was a late note that we received from Ally, I know it's not Rule, Luff, is she asked whether or not any of the spaces in the parking lot would be rented out. They will not be rented out. They will only be utilized by folks that are actually utilizing the facility.
Great. All right, so is everybody, yes.
Is there any drawings that would show a landscape plan and all that? Like she said that the woman mentioned, it's a tree desert over there, so is there any?
We submitted landscape plans with a site plan.
Yeah.
We did. There's plantings proposed along the Weston Avenue frontage, as well as tree plantings between the proposed site and the daycare facility to the south.
Thank you.
Great. Any other questions? Good, okay. So is there a motion to close?
So moved.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
All right, so that was member Liuzzo and Kelly. All those in favor?
Aye.
And does the department have a recommendation?
Yes.
Okay.
Through you, Madam Chair, to the board, after consideration of the site plan accompanying documents and the comments received from city staff and the peer review consultant, the department recommends the board approve special permit Title 17, Sections 3.1.3, major non-residential use, and 5.1.17, parking waivers, subject to the below listed special and general conditions. Number 1, the applicant shall obtain all applicable findings, variances, and special permits if needed from the City of Quincy Zoning Board of Appeal. 2, the applicant shall submit a construction management plan to be filed and approved prior to the issuance of a building permit. This shall include the locations of stockpile and/or staging areas for construction equipment and materials. The applicant shall also address construction period traffic impacts by providing a detailed sequence of construction and addressing any space constraints, detailing how they'll be addressed as construction progresses. 3, the applicant shall reconstruct the sidewalk along the entire property frontage of Weston Ave with cement concrete berm finished with border and tool joints, and reset or replace granite curbing as specified by the Department of Public Works. 4, Weston Avenue was repaved in 2024. The applicant must obtain approval from the Commissioner of Public Works to perform work in Western Ave before 2029. The applicant shall be responsible for restoring the roadway curbing and sidewalk to finished condition once construction activities have concluded. 5, prior to the issuance of a building permit, the applicant shall provide to the city a MBTA zone of influence license. 6, prior to the issuance of a building permit, the applicant shall obtain a drain permit from the Department of Public Works. 7, prior to the issuance of a building permit, the applicant shall perform water flow tests with the city's water department. 8, prior to the issuance of a building permit, the existing sewer main and manholes shall be inspected with television pre-development in order to check the condition of the system. The proposed sewer service pipe and connection to the main shall be inspected with television post-development. The television report shall be submitted to the Department of Public Works for assessment. Number 9, 1 week prior to any land disturbance activities, the applicant shall conduct an on-site inspection with the Department of Public Works or the city's designated representative to observe the erosion controls installed at the site and to review erosion controls to be employed during construction. 10, the Department of Public Works and the city's designated representative shall observe the construction of the stormwater management system at the completion of excavation and upon completion of chamber and crushed stone installation but prior to backfill. Applicant shall provide at least 72 hours notice of said inspections. 11, prior to the issuance of an occupancy permit, the applicant shall submit and record at the Norfolk County Registry of Deeds an operation and maintenance plan for the project stormwater system, which shall include the following: stormwater management system owners, schedule for all routine and non-routine maintenance tasks to be undertaken, snow management plan showing snow storage areas and locations of all stormwater BMPs in each treatment drain along with discharge points, a spill and prevention response plan. Inspections shall be conducted by a qualified professional such as a civil engineer or environmental engineer. 12, the applicant shall consult with the Quincy Health Department on noise mitigation measures for construction-related noise-generating activities to comply with local and state regulations. 13, the applicant shall submit a written rodent control plan to the Quincy Health Department for review and approval prior to any site activity. Said plan must be designed for the duration of the project and include at minimum the following: name and contact info of a licensed pest control operator to be retained by the project proponent for the duration of the project, and a scope of the proposed plan for control of rodents, including number, location, and monitoring frequency of bait stations, as well as the anticipated length of service. 14, the applicant should develop and submit a written dust control plan to the Quincy Health Department for review and approval prior to any site activity. Said dust control plan is to be implemented during any site activities to ensure compliance with state air quality regulations. 15, the applicant shall install stone and concrete monuments to delineate the public right-of-way. The monuments shall be set by a professional land surveyor. 16, the applicant shall submit an AutoCAD file for the proposed project prior to the issuance of a building permit. File should be in Mass State Plane Coordinate Systems and preferably in Quincy standard data layers. 17, upon completion of construction, the applicant shall submit a report including certified as-built plan from a professional engineer or surveyor certifying that the stormwater management system has been constructed in accordance with the approved plans. The report should include a certification that the excavations of the proposed system were inspected prior to backfilling. Applicant shall also provide the city engineer the digital file as-built plans showing all utilities, building footprints, reference bounds, benchmarks defining the total site, facilities, and rights-of-way along with an AutoCAD file. The as-built plan shall be in a Mass State Plane Coordinate System. The plan should be stamped and signed by a professional land surveyor or engineer. 18, upon completion of the project, the applicant shall submit a stamped affidavit from a registered professional engineer that all the utilities, water, sewer, and drain are constructed as designed, and no illicit connections are found on the completed project site. That would complete the department's recommendation.
Thank you. Is there a motion to approve consistent with that recommendation?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, Member Liuzzo and Kelly, all those in favor? Aye. Okay, great. Thank you.
Very much. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, so next item on our agenda, actually, it's two items. I think we heard them together, right? So the continued public hearing for 18, 24, and 28 Old Colony Ave, and also 38 Old Colony Ave. We've been hearing them together.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the board. Edward Fleming for Wollaston Assets LLC. As you know, this is a continued hearing, our continued hearings on these two matters. The initial proposal at 18 to 28 Old Colony Avenue was initially, as you might remember, a 94-unit residential development at 6 stories in height. That was reduced to 5 stories in height. It was changed from an apartment building to condominiums, from 94 units to 62 units, while the parking remained the same. The parking now is more than adequate to provide parking for this new residential development. 38 Old Colony Avenue was initially presented as an affordable building at 27 residential units. And based on comments and concerns of the community, it was changed from the 27 units to 19 units. The number of parking spaces actually was improved for a ratio of 1 space per unit. Those will all be 1-bedroom units in that particular building. And that will also be a condominium building as well. It will no longer be affordable in the sense of meeting the affordable housing guidelines. However, the hope is that many of these units and many of these tenants that live in this facility or live in the buildings now as they exist will be able to afford to live in this location. And in addition to that, we responded to all the peer review comments and DPW comments. Carlos Sculte is here with me tonight, as well as Brian Donahue. And Carlos can certainly respond to any comments or questions that the board may have. But the drainage was actually upgraded. Carlos, at the request of Mr. Stevens, attended a meeting with both the city's DPW department and engineers and the city's consultant to analyze the manner in which drainage should be addressed in this Wollaston area. As you may be very well aware, Wollaston has a flooding issue and concern. I think last time we were here, one of the neighbors, the owner of Wally Wine, raised concerns. Anthony raised some concerns about the flooding that exists in the Wollaston community. And based on those meetings that Carlos attended, upgrades were made to the stormwater system, complying actually, meeting standards that actually don't even exist today in the regulations. So they exceed those regulations, and this system will now operate at a higher level. And I think that both the DPW department and the peer review have acknowledged that that was a significant improvement. So that's all we have tonight. I do have both Carlos and Brian here if there's any questions of those matters, but otherwise, we won't make any additional presentation.
Thank you. Does anybody have any questions?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I just want to know, has the developer been general contractor picked for this project yet?
They have not. No, they have not. And as you know, no, they don't self-perform. David and Cindy, who are involved with that small project at 8 units over on Albertina and Branch, hired a lot of local people for the construction of that. And I anticipate that they'll reach out to local folks as well. They're trying to build relationships with a lot of local providers because they intend to do not only the ones on Albertina and Branch, but these in South Street that you voted on before. So I will certainly pass that on. They're not here tonight, but I'll certainly pass on your concerns. That
Yeah,
local
please,
folks
as you know, I watch out for the men and women of the city of Quincy.
Absolutely.
We live here, we want our guys and girls to work here and,
Yeah.
be a nice project to work on.
I agree. Thank you.
Is that it for questions? Okay, and this is a continued public hearing on 2 matters. So it's 18, 24, and 28 Old Colony Ave, that's case number 2025-06, and 38 Old Colony Ave, that's case number 2025-07. So if you're wishing to speak on either of those matters, you can feel free to come up. Or there's also sign-in sheets, so you can say for or against, just identify your name. Anyone? Yes.
Hi, Danielle Maloney, 100 Standish Ave. Been here 3 times now in opposition to the building. Still in opposition to the building. I appreciate the fact that they're taking the water into consideration, and they partly took the parking into consideration. I still urge the board, before they approve the building, to deny any parking permit ability that the building is able to get, because there will be parking on Old Colony Ave and Standish Ave and Beale Street, excuse me. So I just urge the board to consider the neighbors.
Thank you. Okay, and we did receive additional comment from Ross Nanopoulos. And it's on several matters. I'll read the introduction and then just read into the record his comments on these specific projects. To the planning board, I moved to Wollaston 6 years ago with the promise of Wollaston Urban Redevelopment Plan, and while I have seen business come and go, empty lots and storefronts still sit unused and undeveloped. The area around the Wollaston T-stop is where development must happen. I encourage residents to abandon the scarcity mindset that has previously engulfed past meetings and embrace one of abundance. It is inevitable that cities will grow, otherwise they stagnate. Instead of aiming for less or shorter buildings, Wollaston should reap the benefits through affordable housing and additional growth that benefits local businesses. Additionally, the planning board must work with the Affordable Housing Trust Committee to align incentives for developers to actually build affordable housing instead of simply paying a fee, as was mentioned, is the preferred outcome of the Affordable Housing Trust Committee in past meetings. Regarding my comments on specific properties, as to 18, 24, and 28 Old Colony Avenue, I am disappointed at the reduction of units from 94 to 62, a loss of 32 units, and the removal of affordable housing. Affordable housing should not be sacrificed to make a building slightly smaller. This area already has taller buildings and where we must embrace development near the Wollaston T-stop. And then as to 38 Old Colony Ave, I am disappointed at the reduction of units from 27 to 19 units, a loss of 8 units, and the removal of affordable housing. Affordable housing should not be sacrificed to make a building slightly smaller. This area has taller buildings and where we must embrace development near the Wollaston T-stop. Okay, so that's, oh, yeah.
My name is Linda Maloney. I am also on Standish Ave. I have a question for you guys. When do you stop approving waiver of the parking? When does that happen? Like, we seem to, all these meetings, you just approve the waiver of all the parking. So it's always like 1.5 parking spots for every unit. When does it go back to 2? Like, so I know we downsized the buildings, we downsized the parking, we got rid of the traffic. No, wait, we didn't get rid of the traffic because it hasn't been created yet. We're adding buildings. Are we gonna reevaluate the traffic that these buildings are gonna cause? Have you taken into consideration the Hancock Street apartments next to St. Anne's Church that are gonna cause traffic? Have you taken into consideration the people that pull out of their driveways that can't take a left or right anymore because they're sitting in traffic? Are we going to reevaluate the traffic in the city of Quincy like we did when State Street was built? We put all those streets down there one ways, do not enters during certain times. Is this gonna be part of the build? That's my question to you guys, as like the approval of all of this.
So, no, Attorney Fleming, you looked like you
I
wanted to get up, but.
was just gonna address, we're not actually requesting a parking waiver for the larger building now. The larger building actually has 1.58 spaces per unit, which in this zoning district, 1.5 spaces is required. So we're actually over parking that proposal. With regard to traffic has been analyzed, but it's not only been analyzed by our folks, but it's also been analyzed by the city traffic department and by the peer review traffic department to determine that this is not gonna have a dramatic impact. The good thing about this proposal is that it's in such close proximity to the T.
Which is great, I agree, yes.
And amenities.
So with such close proximity to the T, can we put up a fence of some sort of barrier that prevents the pedestrians from just willy-nilly crossing anywhere they want? Can we force the pedestrians to cross at the lights? Is that an option?
I can maybe add to that. So the intersection at Field Street and Old Colony used to be signalized for traffic, and now it has priority pedestrian crossings. So there's that signalized crossing for the pedestrians. So the city already took steps to heighten that crossing, knowing that they want to drive traffic.
So the city actually created more of a traffic jam, and putting up more buildings with more vehicles is gonna cause a bigger traffic jam. I'm asking, can we put a fence up and forward the pedestrians to go left or right where the lights are already existing. Where when people are coming off of Old Colony Ave, they have the option to take a left or right, because once the pedestrian lights, the blinking lights, once they're pushed, it's complete gridlock. And obviously the pedestrian has the right of way, but it's gridlock coming off of Old Colony Ave. It is gridlock going down Beale Street, it is gridlock coming up Beale Street. Hancock Street is gridlocked. Newport Ave is gridlocked. People on the other side of Beale Street where the Wallaston train station, you get like 4 cars through. So there has to be some kind of barrier to stop the pedestrians from crossing wherever they want. Like if there's a barrier for a fence of some sort that they just can't walk across to the train station. And we're all talking foot traffic, because that's what people want, I get it. But can we make the foot traffic go in a certain pattern, like we do cars go in a certain pattern? Is there an option for that? Like, is that doable? Like, can you put a fence up? Okay, like, I know it's a train station, but.
We can't.
Yeah.
And I doubt that the city can do it, but that's a city decision, that has to be made by the city.
So, but did the city get money for that blinking light, or is that something that has to be there? Like, if there wasn't a light, the pedestrians, if they were smart, would go to where there are lights and a crosswalk, I would imagine. Could we remove that blinking light for the pedestrians and force them to go to where there's actually a stoplight and a walking signal? Is that an option for the city to do?
So that's beyond the purview of this board. I mean, we're volunteer
But
members.
the building
we
itself is
consider
gonna cause more
applications.
traffic.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. And if
Yes.
as far as traffic is concerned, did they bring into the valuation of all the traffic for the 2 buildings that are going up on Clay Street and Whitman Ave, I think it is, that other street? Do they do the traffic for those ones that haven't even existed yet? And is it gonna be gridlock coming off of Clay Street? Like, has the board taken all of this into consideration with all the traffic that these buildings are gonna create?
Yeah, so it's all been peer reviewed and studied by experts. You know, the considerations that you're bringing, I don't know who it would be, Department of Public Works, that, not really though. Who looks at the different improvements to the,
Well, it's a combination of Public Works and TPAL. If
Right.
I could give you some comfort, the city has gone forward and adopted an urban renewal plan for the Wollaston area.
Right.
It's a couple of years old. Both of these projects in Old Colony are within the urban renewal district.
Right.
We've, it's an initial plan that we identified. We listed all of the streets and sidewalks of needing updates. And now, that plan is a bit of a marketing plan, and it's generated interest from the private development community. You mentioned the one, the old supermarket and the one on Wentworth.
Right, well,
We now have these projects. We've also approved the project up on Beale Street that never went forward a few years ago.
right.
Later on this agenda, we've got the Housing Authority coming in with another development. We are aware of the cumulative effect here, and the city is monitoring the situation and moving forward. We'll be moving forward with traffic analysis to update and upgrade the intersection systems.
Okay.
When we look at that, we don't look at just cars any longer. We need to also look at pedestrian circulation. We're trying to use some of the lessons we learned here. What comes to my mind is you're looking for a median strip, and we applied some of that in up Hannon Parkway, and maybe more importantly, we had a real tough time with the Stop and Shop headquarters here with folks walking across that street. So that median strip now has some fencing in there.
Right,
So
that's
your
what I'm talking about.
technique is a valid technique to suggest, and I think that is, this area right at Old Colony, where it intersects in Beale, something needs to be done there, for sure, but that will fall on the city, and we can work that through the urban renewal plan. One of the good things about the urban renewal plan is it forces us as a city, and not just the planners, but Public Works and TPAL, to look at the whole district.
Right.
Where this proponent here is trying to just advocate for his, property in the immediate area around it. But, we have to look up all along Beale Street, up to Hancock.
Right, you guys are the ones that are giving the okay, so I'm assuming you guys would have the final say in this project going through. So that's why
For
I'm
sure.
here, yeah.
Yeah, and a big play with Old Colony is, and we've had some initial conversations with the MBTA, is what's up with that parking lot as well. You could look at it, and diagonally is the best way to get to that parking lot.
Absolutely.
But, there may be, new development there at some point. They've, the T's developed at North Quincy, and, they're trying to develop here at Quincy Center. So I feel confident with that urban renewal plan tool that the city has some abilities here as development comes forward, to address and update all of the public infrastructure.
Okay. So how long does it take for you guys after the building's been up before you go back in and you see if the
Someone
traffic
talks
is
about
working?
starting and when does it end? You just begin. And these private developments are coming forward, and that's the opportunity that the city has to jump on and work in partnership with the private investment.
Okay.
So it's ongoing, for sure. We have some filings and updates we need to do through the MEPA process tied to the urban renewal plan. That's the Massachusetts Environmental Protection Act. One of those processes is dealing with MassDOT and MBTA on roadways and those types of improvements we anticipate from the overall growth of the district as a result of the urban renewal plan.
All right, and then I also have another plan. So the parking for these units that all these, the city of Quincy's putting up, when we talk about snow removal, we're losing parking spots. You all probably have a driveway. I'm sure your driveway gets a little tight when it snows. So we're gonna lose parking spots in winter. If it's anything like 2015, we're gonna lose more than one parking spot.
Yeah.
So how do we combat that issue? Like, cause there's so many parking spots, and now we've just it's New England, we're gonna have winter. So what do we do with those? Like, is that
Right.
part of?
So you had some concern, I think, with the on-street parking.
Right.
So when a project, and I know Mr. Fleming mentioned the larger one meets the parking requirement,
Right.
the smaller one does not. When they are granted a parking waiver by this board, there is a condition that comes through the TPAL office that any future residents won't be eligible for overnight parking stickers on street.
Right.
So that goes with any case. So there may be some daytime impacts, but, snow emergencies or overnight parking, that won't be tolerated by the city if there are impacts once these are up. Snow removal very quickly goes to, you need to haul it out of the area. There's limited spots.
Right, that's,
We were here for that blizzard winter with the snow dumps up at Marina Bay, and I mean, that was amazing, but hopefully we never see that again.
Yeah, but we still get snow. It's inevitable. We're gonna
For sure, they have to answer that question through a lot of the engineering,
Okay.
and then our Public Works will definitely know how to notify those owners that don't clean sidewalks and, or clean out the snow,
Okay.
or push it where it actually impacts
Yeah, like
other
they
parking
can't push
spaces.
snow into the street. Like that's not an option in the city of
No.
Quincy, I would imagine.
No, it is not.
Okay, okay, that's it. Thanks.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
I have a question about traffic that they brought up. So they said that traffic doesn't get any worse? That according to the report, traffic doesn't get any worse? Is that accurate? The traffic peer reviews?
Yeah, I think to that point, the level of service at the various intersections, we look at the traffic generated by the project, right? Obviously, any additional units will generate some incidental additional traffic, but we take a look at all the intersections that were studied and analyzed and coordinated with the TPAL office, and the level of service doesn't change at those intersections.
I believe it was a level F or a level E level of traffic.
I
And
think-
that's the highest rating it can go, so it can't go any higher, so it can't get any worse according to your scale, if I'm correct.
Yeah, according to the
So it can get
NUTCD
worse, though,
scale.
just doesn't, the paper says it can't.
Yeah, and I think there was a marginal impact of a few seconds at that intersection. I think over the course of time, people find routes to go, right? There's, just a natural pattern that happens.
Thank you. All right, anyone else wishing to speak on these applications? Okay, and so with that,
Motion to close the public hearing.
okay, so we need to close each. So the first will be 18, 24, and 28 Old Colony Ave. Is there a motion to close that?
So be it.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Okay, so all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Should I close the next one too before? Okay, so we will then close 38 Old Colony Ave as well.
Motion to close 38 Old Colony Ave.
Okay, is there, okay, all those in favor? Aye. Okay, so does the board have a recommendation on 18, 24, and 28 Old Colony Ave?
Yeah, the board has recommendations for both.
Okay, great.
They're very similar.
Yep.
Did you?
Yeah, so I think that it makes sense. I know that there's one condition that's different, condition number 4, but the special conditions are otherwise the same.
Identical, yeah.
Identical. So I think it makes sense for Mr. Stevens to read his recommendation on, let's say, 18, 24, and 28. Or
And
the
a
department's recommendation. We can then vote on that, and then we'll go through the next.
Apply or read both? through?
No, read the
Read
the
one
first,
through,
yes.
and I'll make a note
Of the,
in my
yes.
remarks on
Yes,
4?
yes. And this is the special conditions.
Correct, okay. After consideration of the site plan accompanying documents and the comments received from the city staff and peer review consultant, the department recommends the board approve site plan review under Quincy zoning ordinance Title 17, Section 9.5.1, site plan review, and special permit under Section 5.1.17, parking waiver, subject to the below special and general conditions. Special condition 1, the applicant shall obtain all applicable findings, variances, and special permits if needed from the City of Quincy Zoning Board of Appeal. Number 2, the applicant shall comply with the City of Quincy inclusionary zoning ordinance, Section 7. The applicant shall submit an IZO application to the Affordable Housing Trust Fund Committee prior to the issuance of a building permit. A decision of the Affordable Housing Trust must be made on the subject property prior to the issuance of a temporary or final occupancy permit. Number 3, the applicant shall submit a construction management plan to be filed and approved prior to the issuance of a building permit. This shall include the locations of stockpile and/or staging areas for construction equipment and materials. The applicant shall also address construction period traffic impacts by providing a detailed sequence of construction and addressing any space constraints and detailing how they'll be addressed as construction progresses. Number 4, the applicant shall reconstruct the sidewalk on the entire property frontage of Old Colony Avenue, and in the case of 38 Old Colony Avenue, that it will include Old Colony Ave and Pitts Avenue with cement, concrete, broom finish with border joints and tool joints, and reset or replace the granite curbing as specified by the Department of Public Works. So that'd be Old Colony Ave for 18, and then Old Colony and Pitts Ave for 38. Special condition 5, prior to the issuance of a building permit, the applicant shall perform a water flow test with the city's water department. 6, prior to the issuance of a building permit, the existing sewer main and manholes shall be inspected with television pre-development in order to check the condition of the system. The proposed sewer service pipe and connection to the main shall be inspected with television post-development. Television reports shall be submitted to the Department of Public Works for assessment. 7, 1 week prior to any land disturbance activities, the applicant shall conduct an on-site inspection with Department of Public Works and/or the city's designated representative to observe the erosion controls installed at the site and to review the erosion controls to be employed during construction. The Department of Public Works and/or city's designated representative shall observe the construction of the stormwater management system upon completion of excavation and upon completion of chamber and crushed stone installation, but prior to backfill. Applicant shall provide at least 72 hours notice for said inspections. Number 9, prior to the issuance of an occupancy permit, the applicant shall submit and record at the Norfolk County Registry of Deeds an operation and maintenance plan for the project stormwater system, which shall include the stormwater management system owner, a schedule for all routine and non-routine maintenance tasks to be undertaken, a snow management plan showing snow storage areas and location of all stormwater BMPs in each treatment drain, along with the discharge points. Inspections shall be conducted by a qualified professional, such as a civil engineer or environmental engineer. 10, the applicant shall conduct a pre-demolition asbestos survey for any existing structures to be demolished. If there are any asbestos-containing materials present, they must be removed by a licensed contractor, and a post-abatement inspection must be performed by a DLI-certified project monitor. A walkthrough inspection conducted by Quincy Health Department is required prior to demolition. 11, the applicant shall consult with the Quincy Health Department on noise mitigation measures for construction-related noise-generating activities to comply with the local and state regulations. 12, the applicant shall submit a written rodent control plan to the Quincy Health Department for review and approval prior to any site activity. Said plan must be designed for the duration of the project and include at minimum the name and contact information of a licensed pest control operator to be retained by the project proponent for the duration of the project. Scope of the proposed plan to control rodents, including number, location, and monitoring frequency of bait stations, as well as the anticipated length of service. 13, the applicant shall develop and submit a written dust control plan to the Quincy Health Department for review and approval prior to any site activity. Said dust control plan is to be implemented during any site activities to ensure compliance with state air quality regulations. 14, the applicant shall comply with the City of Quincy tree ordinance. 15, the applicant shall submit an AutoCAD file for the project prior to the issuance of a building permit. Files should be in Mass State Plan Coordinate System and preferably in Quincy Standard Data Layers. 16, upon completion of construction, the applicant shall submit a report, including certified as-built plan from a professional engineer or surveyor certifying that the stormwater management system has been constructed in accordance with the approved plans. The report should include a certification that the excavations of the proposed system were inspected prior to backfilling. The applicant shall also provide to the city engineer the digital file as-built plan showing all utilities, building footprints, reference bounds, and benchmarks defining the total site, facility, and rights-of-way along with the AutoCAD file. The as-built plans shall be in the Mass State Plane Coordinate System. Plans should be stamped and signed by a professional land surveyor or engineer. 17, upon completion of the project, the applicant shall submit a stamped affidavit from a registered professional engineer that all the utilities, water, sewer, and drain are constructed as designed and no illicit disconnections are found on the completed project site. And that would conclude the department's recommendation.
Okay, great. I just have one question. At the beginning of the recommendation, we reference for 18, 24, and 28, a special permit under section 5.1.17, parking waiver. I believe it was mentioned tonight that that's no longer necessary given the changes to the project.
That's correct.
Okay, so we should remove that.
Setbacks.
Although we may have
Setback
setback issues for the.
Okay, but not spaces.
Not spaces.
Okay, got it. All right.
Right, thank you.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay,
And not
great.
just those front spaces.
Okay, thank you. All right, so we will need a motion to accept the department's recommendation on 18, 24, and 28 Old Colony Ave.
A motion that we accept the recommendation?
Is there a second?
Second.
No. Okay. Okay, I'll give it to Member Foley and Member Kelly. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And then a motion to accept the department's recommendation on 38 Old Colony Ave.
Make a motion that we accept that?
Is there a second?
Second.
Is Ally voting on this? No, so I need a second from somebody, yeah. I don't remember, okay, thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, so that's unanimous. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Great, thank you. I think we could save you.
Thank you on that one.
Well, yeah.
It's great how it lined up like that.
Yeah. All right, next on the agenda is another continued public hearing, 211 C Street, Planning Board Case Number 2025-10.
Just think, you won't have to see me on any of these cases next time.
For 2 months.
Yeah, there will be new cases.
No, there's new ones, just not these ones. Again, Edward Fleming on behalf of the applicant in this matter, Peter Lee, and 211 to 215 C Street. As you know, this was a continued public hearing. We went through a number of different changes and revisions. Just to highlight some of those changes and revisions that we went through, we reduced the number of units from 24 to 18. We maintained the number of parking spaces at 41 spaces, therefore having a parking ratio of 2.25, which is required in the Residence B zoning district, so we comply with parking. We reduced the height of the building from 4 stories to 3 stories. We've continued to work with the state and the city on all the improvements that are being made on C Street that actually are great improvements to the area, but also great improvements to the access to this proposal. That allowed us to actually make the C Street entrance only, and all of our traffic now will exit through the side street onto the light at C Street, which will really improve the flow of traffic for this particular proposal. We had great neighborhood meetings with Councilor McCarthy on two different occasions where we had an opportunity to hear and listen to some of the neighbors' concerns, and we made some changes to actually provide some additional privacy by eliminating some of the balconies on the residential sides of the property. Overall, I think this is a much improved proposal, and we're quite happy to have made those revisions. Thank
Can
you.
you see if anybody has any questions?
I'd like to make a couple comments. I think it's gonna be a nice addition to the area. Like I said, I like the project that was built at the old China Star. I think it's a very similar project. I think it's gonna add to the area. You do get the benefits of what they're doing on C Street.
Absolutely.
So that's a great thing. And Mr. Lee, I would hope that when you do decide to build with local contractors, if you keep them in mind for the men and women of the city of Quincy, They live here, they'd like to work on the projects in the city, so just keep that in mind when you're choosing a contractor. Thank you. Good
I
luck.
know our friend Jimmy Dunn will be part of his, the job right off the bat. So he's a local guy, as local as they come.
Does
I
anybody
know
else have any?
Mr. Dunn.
Thank you.
All right, so it is a public hearing, so if anybody would like to speak on this, it's 211 C Street, Planning Board Case Number 2025-10. There are sign-in sheets as well along the window. Okay, all right, seeing none, is there a motion to close?
Motion to close the public hearing?
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And I would just echo Mr. Kelly's comments. I think this kind of came to us like so many projects rarely do, which is very well thought out, taking into consideration a lot of the comments from the neighbors, and I think that's a testament to you and the thoughtfulness that you put into the design, and I think it will be great. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Does the department have a recommendation?
Yes, we do. Through you, Madam Chair, to the board, after consideration of the site plan accompanying documents and the comments received from the city staff and peer review consultant, the department recommends the board approve site plan review under zoning ordinance Title 17, Section 9.5.1, and special permit under Section 5.1.17 parking waivers subject to the below listed special and general conditions. Applicant shall obtain all applicable findings, variances, and special permits if needed from the City of Quincy Zoning Board of Appeal. 2, the applicant shall comply with the City of Quincy inclusionary zoning ordinance, Section 7, and the applicant shall submit an IZO application to the Affordable Housing Trust Fund Committee prior to the issuance of a building permit. A decision by that committee shall be made on the subject property prior to the issuance of a temporary or final occupancy permit. Number 3, the applicant shall submit a construction management plan to be filed and approved prior to the issuance of a building permit. This shall include the locations of stockpile and/or staging areas for construction equipment and materials. The applicant shall also address construction period traffic impacts by providing a detailed sequence of construction and addressing any space constraints and detailing how they'll be addressed as construction progresses. 4, the applicant shall reconstruct the sidewalk along the entire property frontage on C Street with cement concrete broom finish with border and tool joints, and reset or replace granite curbing as specified by the Department of Public Works. The applicant shall provide ADA, AAB compliant sidewalks and wheelchair ramps at crosswalks within the site with reciprocal ramps across Murphy Memorial Drive. 5, C Street is currently undergoing major reconstruction. The applicant shall coordinate with the Department of Public Works on any digging work in C Street for the proposed project. 6, prior to the issuance of a building permit, the applicant shall obtain a drain permit from the Department of Public Works. 7, prior to the issuance of a building permit, the applicant shall perform a water flow test with the city's water department. 8, prior to the issuance of a building permit, the existing sewer main, manholes, and existing stormwater system in Murphy Memorial Drive shall be inspected with television pre-development in order to check the condition of the system. The proposed sewer service pipe and the connection to the main shall be inspected with the television post-development. The television report shall be submitted to the Department of Public Works for assessment. 9, 1 week prior to any land disturbance activities, the applicant shall conduct an on-site inspection with the Department of Public Works and/or the city's designated representative to observe the erosion controls installed at the site and to review the erosion controls to be employed during construction. 10, the Department of Public Works and the city's designated representative shall observe the construction of the stormwater management system upon completion of excavation and upon a completion of chamber and crushed stone installation, but prior to backfill. Applicant shall provide at least 72-hour notice of said inspections. 11, prior to the issuance of an occupancy permit, the applicant shall submit and record at the Norfolk County Registry of Deeds an operation and maintenance plan for the project stormwater system, which shall include the stormwater management system owners, schedule for all routine and non-routine maintenance tasks to be undertaken, snow management plan showing snow storage and area and locations of all stormwater BMPs in each treatment drain, along with discharge points, any limitations on the use of salt and/or de-icing chemicals, if any, and restrictions on snow storage stockpiling as it relates to sight lines and/or placement within the stormwater BMPs. Inspections shall be conducted by a qualified professional such as a civil engineer or environmental engineer. 12, the applicant shall conduct a pre-demolition asbestos survey for any existing structures to be demolished. If there are any asbestos-containing materials present, they must be removed by a licensed contractor, and a post-abatement inspection must be performed by a DLI-certified project monitor. A walkthrough inspection conducted by the Quincy Health Department is required prior to demolition. 13, the applicant shall consult with the Quincy Health Department on noise mitigation measures for construction-related noise-generating activities to comply with the local and state regulations. 14, the applicant shall submit a written rodent control plan to the Quincy Health Department for review and approval prior to any site activity. Said plan must be designed for the duration of the project and include at minimum the following: name and contact information of a licensed pest control operator to be retained by the project proponent for the duration of the project. A scope of the proposed plan to control rodents, including number, location, and monitoring frequency of bait stations, as well as the anticipated length of service. 15, the applicant should develop and submit a written dust control plan to the Quincy Health Department for a review and approval prior to any site activity. Said dust control plan is to be implemented during any site activities to ensure compliance with state air quality regulations. 16, the applicant shall comply with the City of Quincy tree ordinance. 17, the applicant shall install stone or concrete monuments to delineate the public right-of-way. Monuments shall be set by a professional land surveyor. 18, the applicant shall submit an AutoCAD file for the project prior to the issuance of a building permit. File should be in the Mass State Plane Coordinate System and preferably in Quincy Standard Data Layers. 19, upon completion of construction, the applicant shall submit a report including certified as-built plan from a professional engineer or surveyor certifying that the stormwater management system has been constructed in accordance with the approved plans. The report should include a certification that the excavations of the proposed system were inspected prior to backfilling. The applicant shall also provide to the city engineer the digital file as-built plan showing all utilities, building footprints, reference bound, and benchmarks defining the total site, facilities, and rights-of-way, along with an AutoCAD file. The as-built plan shall be in Mass State Plane Coordinate System. The plan should be stamped and signed by a professional land surveyor or professional engineer. 20, upon completion of the project, the applicant shall submit a stamped affidavit from a registered professional engineer that all the utilities, water, sewer, and drain are constructed as designed and no illicit connections are found on the completed project site. That would conclude the department's recommendation.
Okay, thank you. And I did forget to mention during the public hearing, but these comments were submitted during the public hearing from Ross Stenopoulos, just with respect to this, I'm in support of housing here. Additionally, that intersection is dangerous, exiting from QIA, especially when trying to get over 4 lanes to Quincy Shore Drive, and I can't wait until the new light is operational. So I just wanted to make sure that I read that, but it was submitted timely. So is there a motion to accept the department's recommendation?
Motion to accept the department's recommendation for 211 C Street.
Is there a second? Okay, all those in favor? Aye. Okay, so that is unanimous. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, and moving right along is a new public hearing, 80 Clay Street Planning Board Case Number 2025-11. This public hearing shall be conducted to review the application of AHSC Peabody Developer LLC, 536 Granite Street, Braintree, Mass. 02184 for site plan review under Quincy zoning ordinance Title 17, Section 9.5.1 site plan review and special permits under Section 5.1.17 parking waiver. The applicant proposes the construction of a new 7-story building behind the Quincy Housing Authority Tobin Tower, building consisting of 94 affordable 1-bedroom residential units with garage parking on the first floor and surface parking for a total of 112 spaces to be shared with the existing Tobin Tower. The proposal will also include structured exterior space and amenity space for the residents, along with professional design drainage controls and landscaping. The property contains 105,466 square feet of land and is located at 80 Clay Street. The subject property is located within a business C zoning district and shown on Assessor's Map 5092, Lot 77, Plot 103. Good evening, Attorney Foreman.
Yeah, surprise, surprise. Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the board. I am pleased to appear before you on behalf of AHSC Peabody Developer LLC, which is a joint venture between a company called Affordable Housing Services Collaborative and Peabody Properties. Peabody Properties is a company that you probably are very familiar with, a longtime developer in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, and been very involved in both market rate housing and affordable housing over the years. I'm also joined by a number of folks tonight. I'm joined by Michael Matos, who is the president of Affordable Housing Services Collaborative, and Dana Angelo, also of Affordable Housing Services Collaborative. Betsy Collins of Peabody Properties. I'm also joined by James Marathis, who is the Executive Director of the Quincy Housing Authority. James will speak a little bit about why we're here tonight and what brought our group here tonight. We're also joined by a great team of professionals, including Jesse Johnson, Doug Ostler, and Jonathan Law of Weston and Sampson Engineering Company. Jesse will speak on issues related to the civil engineering, while Doug will speak on traffic, and Jonathan will speak on landscaping improvements to the site. And I'm also joined by Jay Zemansky of the architectural team, another great architectural team that's done a lot of work in the city of Quincy. And Jay will speak about the architectural improvements that we made to the property. First of all, as you identified the site as being 80 Clay Street, which is the home of Tobin Towers. It's been there since 1973. It actually obtained Zoning Board of Appeals relief back in 1973 to construct the 12-story building that now is the home to the Quincy Housing Authority. That site actually has always included two different parcels of land. The parcel on which the Housing Authority is constructed and was constructed in 1973, and a separate parcel which over the years has kind of become an expanded parking lot, much of which the Housing Authority has never needed, and therefore has considered to be kind of extra space, always with the goal of opportunities for redevelopment, opportunities for additional housing to be constructed on the site. It's about 105,000 square foot parcel of land, and it's located, as you indicated, Madam Chair, in Business C, but it's also in the Wollaston Urban Revitalization District. So it really calls for and provides for more housing to be provided. What's special about this proposal, though, is that this proposal provides affordable housing, which we talked about as being something that's very much needed, but also affordable housing for seniors. Therefore, folks that are 62 and over. And we'll talk about that in a little bit more detail as we go through the presentation. Again, as I said, this is a joint venture. Peabody, a number of years ago, created an affordable housing entity whereby Peabody was directly involved in the creation of affordable housing throughout the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. And they did so through the creation of this Affordable Housing Services Collaborative. And what happened is Affordable Housing Services Collaborative, after some time, broke off from Peabody, but maintained a relationship with Peabody, so that Peabody and AHSC, say that 5 times fast, always have remained as in joint ventures in partnership. This is and James will talk about this in more detail, but this was a response to a request for proposals. A request for proposal, or RFP as is known, is a party asked folks to make a particular proposal, and in this particular case, the Housing Authority was seeking to construct 100 additional units at this location. And our client, my client, responded to that request for proposal and was considered, along with other folks, for the opportunity to build this proposal here at this site. So the new proposal, and I won't get into too much detail because you're going to hear a lot of the details from our team, but again, it provides for an affordable housing development for seniors 62 and over. I don't really like that because I'm approaching that age fairly quickly. It provides for a 7-story building with 94 residential units, all 1 bedrooms, and all affordable, as I said. There'll be garage parking provided in the site and also surface parking. So when you see the initial or as-is picture of the Housing Authority, you'll see basically a sea of parking in a large parking lot behind the Quincy Housing Authority. And as James will talk about, much of that parking is just not utilized. A lot of the folks in the Housing Authority that reside in the Housing Authority building do not own vehicles. And not only do they not own vehicles, but there's great public amenities, as you know, the T right across the street, and also amenities within the Wollaston Business District. But you'll see that that parking lot that sits there today, when developed, will actually be maintained in many respects because there will be additional parking provided under this new building that will essentially replicate a lot of the spaces that will be lost in the location of the building. The other great things about this, and our team, Jesse Johnson, as Carlos Sculte before him, was asked by Mr. Stevens to join a meeting with the DPW commissioner, engineers, the city's consultant, to talk about flooding controls in Wollaston. And Jesse participated in that meeting, and that those design controls that are going to be proposed for this site are going to take into account those concerns, and Jesse will talk about those drainage control measures briefly tonight, but he'll work very closely with peer review in the city's engineer department to ensure that that is not going to cause any issues or concerns for the community. We've also reviewed traffic and parking very closely, and Doug will talk about the traffic and the parking of this particular proposal. And again, what you'll see is in this type of a proposal, elderly affordable units will not drive as much parking demand or traffic for that matter to this site. So we're really excited about this proposal. It's not often that I have an opportunity to come before you to create this level of affordable housing. We had great meetings not only with the city councilor and the community, but also with the mayor and his staff. And I think, I can't speak for the mayor certainly, but I'm hopeful that the mayor is also excited about the opportunity to create all this affordable housing. So with that, I'd like to first ask James to come up and tell us a little bit about why we're here and what thought process went into place.
Good evening, Madam Chair and the rest of the board members. Thank you for the opportunity to come before you with this project. I'm going to be brief, which is probably the first time I've ever said that in my life. But I just want to give you kind of the background of how we got here on this project. This project's been in the planning for almost 7 years now. Back about 7 years ago, the state was identifying parcels of land that they could potentially build new affordable housing on. And the land that we have at Clay Street was identified as one of the potential sites for additional affordable housing. So the state put out a RFP for housing authorities to submit in proposals to build new affordable housing. We actually submitted in a proposal back then, about 7 years ago, and we were not selected. The state only had a certain pot of money that they could use, and they picked 3 different cities that they spent the money on to create new affordable housing in. So we continued conversations with the state back and forth about this project, and that we really wanted to see something be done for the city of Quincy to create some new affordable housing. So what the state did was they agreed to give us a grant and hire Mass Housing Partnership to kind of design the site and kind of prepare the site for development. So Mass Housing Partnership was brought in with the Housing Authority. They did all the title work. They separated out the lot. They prepared what they thought could be built on the land, and then Mass Housing helped us put out an RFP to potential developers who would want to develop on this site. We put together a committee at the Housing Authority, and we also included our Board of Commissioners, and we went through all the potential applicants that applied to build this building and partner up with the Housing Authority to do this. And by far, Peabody Properties was selected by everybody on our committee as well as our Board of Commissioners. So they have full support of the Housing Authority and the Board of Commissioners for the Housing Authority. As you know, there is a desperate need for affordable housing. I can only speak to you about what I do every day. What I do every day is try to put people in the units that we have here in Quincy. We have about 1,600 units in Quincy. And you know, when people ask me how long is it going to be on the waiting list, years ago we used to say 20 years. We used to tell people it's going to be anywhere between 15 and 20 years before you can get a unit. Now we can't give them an answer because now the state waiting list has been taken over by the state. And now the state monitors the waiting list, and they send applicants to us that they pick based on their priorities. And it's not always Quincy residents. It's not always people that we would have chosen off of the list. It's people that they now choose off the list and now send to us. One of the reasons why we're eliminating federal public housing is so that we can make those choices again. And we're doing that by purchasing O'Brien Towers, Pagnato Towers. We're closing on Riverview at the end of July. and then we're closing on drone apartments. So by the end of this year, the city of Quincy will have no more federal public housing, and that's good for many, many reasons. One is because they're talking about cutting the budget for all of federal public housing by 42% this year, which is gonna basically wipe out federal public housing anyways. And I think their goal is basically to get rid of it anyways. So the need for public housing, the need for affordable housing, I shouldn't say public housing, the need for affordable housing is desperate. And it's desperate for the residents that live in Quincy. And by having a company like Peabody, where they're gonna manage the property, they're gonna take care of the property, I'm thankful for that too. But what's gonna be the difference is that they're gonna be able to accept people, especially on the initial lease up, from the city of Quincy. And they're gonna be able to provide a service to people that right now isn't being met. And by far, it's being met less by the housing authority. Unfortunately, I have to say that, but it is, as far as the state public housing end of it goes. So there's a huge need for this housing, and I think Peabody is a great partner to put this project together. So, any questions? Great.
Yeah.
Yes,
So this is a city-owned property.
it's actually a state-owned property.
State-owned property.
It's owned by the Commonwealth of
So this
Massachusetts.
will be going under the bid laws, correct?
This is gonna be leased to Peabody Construction.
So there'll be, because it's being leased, they don't have to follow the bid laws?
Well, I think you might wanna speak to them about the bidding. I'm not gonna be putting the building up, so I don't wanna speak for them.
Okay,
I think that's something that they need to answer.
okay. I'll save
Okay.
that question for them.
There you go. There you go. Anybody else? All right, great, thank you all.
Thank you very much.
Just, is this, am I driving slides with this?
Yeah.
Okay.
Just one second, let's have Michael just say.
Oh, okay.
Sorry, Justin. And I apologize, I don't feel like I don't need to say much. Mike Matos, Affordable Housing Services Collaborative, we're one of the joint venture owners here with Betsy Collins from Peabody Properties. As James mentioned and as Ed mentioned, we were the successful respondents to the RFP proposal last year. And we've really spent the last 6 months or so working with the Housing Authority to refine the site plan that you'll see tonight that we think accomplishes all the goals that they were looking for as in terms of their proposal. And we think that it'll be an added benefit to the community and to the neighborhood. And again, our organization, we've been around for 21 years. We were founded by the founder of Peabody Properties, Ed Fish. And we enjoy a strategic relationship with Peabody, and they presently manage Swanham Gardens here in the community. So they're a known presence here as well. So we're looking forward to continuing that relationship with the city of Quincy, and we're happy to answer any questions you have tonight. In terms of your question about the procurement, I guess I want to make sure I understand it.
The question was, will this project be following the Mass General laws and the bid laws?
Well, so right now, we're not required to.
Okay.
Because the Housing Authority procured us under 30B, under their procurement requirements for that. And then, as James mentioned, they're going to be ground leasing a portion of that land to us, which it will be a private LLC.
So there's no state money involved?
There will be bond-funded subordinate debt that we'll be requesting from the state, but those sources don't have direct requirements for that for what we're doing, because it's not considered public housing or public construction. So anyway, with that, I would like to turn it over to Jesse Johnson, our civil engineer.
Thank you.
Thank you. Jesse Johnson, Weston Sampson. I'm the civil engineer of record for this project. And we'll start with the first slide. I want to get everybody oriented to the site, if you're familiar with it or not. So this is oriented to the north. You have Clay Street essentially to the south of the existing Tobin Tower. You have Wentworth on the eastern side of our site, and then you have Hancock Street there to the north of that. And as mentioned, we're in the Wollaston neighborhood. and giving you a snapshot of what the existing site looks like now. I don't know how many of you might have been on the board back in 2016, but if anybody was, you're probably familiar with this project that came through for redevelopment. There was no curb cut at the time to Wentworth Road, so the project came through to do a full redevelopment of the back area behind the building and seeing what you have here today, which is the final product that was constructed in 2017. And at that time, the site was fully repaved, stormwater was updated to comply with Mass Stormwater Guidelines in full compliance. Utilities were brought in for lighting and making sure that the existing building was in compliance. And when we got on board, we looked at that, obviously got record plans of what was constructed from 2017 and understood that we needed to find out what happened at that time and what's going on today, especially with stormwater. We heard right out of the gate that there was concerns in this neighborhood with stormwater, basically leaving not only our site in Clay Street, but the overall area, that we should find out pretty soon what's going on with potential for future flooding and be sensitive to that when we wanted to redesign that. So we look at all the time, when we look at a site, we want to understand what the constraints are right out of the gate from a standpoint of utilities, from stormwater, from abutters, buffer zones, and before we start laying things out. And we wanted to be able to do something on this site with adding a building, but accommodating the parking we need for it and try to thread that needle. So I'll just go to the site plan. And what we came up with, if you can see in the northern part of this site, is our building is proposed as an L shape to anchor into that back corner. As it was mentioned, this is going to be a 7-story building with 94 units. And what we realized is we got to take advantage of the fact that a lot of that parking that you just noticed wasn't being utilized. But we need to accommodate the parking not only for the existing building, but what we're generating for our new use with the increase of 94 units. So we wanted to put the parking actually on that first floor. So at an expense of the building, we're going to be putting it up an extra story to make sure that we're putting parking back where it already exists by having 22 parking spaces on the ground floor of the building. And then we're going to have an additional 90 surface spaces that you see sprinkled throughout the site. We also wanted to take advantage of utilizing a lot of that existing pavement and access that was already redone less than a decade ago. And what we also heard was there's some traffic concerns on the front along Clay Street with people parking in front of the building. You could actually, just to show you quick, you can see some cars right there parked in front on the frontage that people are saying with emergency vehicle access from time to time or just general traffic congestion that can get a little tight through there. So when we heard that, we said, all right, well, what about if we change the circulation on the site? So there's 2 curb cuts off of Clay Street now with both full access in and out, and then there's a curb cut off of Wentworth with 2-way access. What we're gonna do is that one that's in the lower corner, we're gonna essentially abandon the cut-through ability of that curb cut and just have it be for 2 parking spaces, which would essentially be for employees of Tobin Tower, and not have the ability to drive through the site or out of the site through that Clay Street access. And then the existing one to the west, that one we're gonna change to 1-way only. So it's gonna be an ingress only into the site and not 2-way. That's gonna accomplish a lot for the congestion on Clay Street. But what we also did was, all right, we have 2 buildings that are kind of facing each other. Let's put a pickup and drop off in the central location that I've highlighted there in that red trapezoid shape in the middle. That will be a designated pickup and drop off for mail, deliveries, residents, whatever you need, so it's not being done at the front in Clay Street now where they have the overhang. We're also gonna sign the front to indicate to people that might not be familiar with the site. They'll see a sign that says, take the next right for pickup and drop off, and direct them interior to the site. And then you can see from my proposed flow arrows in red there how the traffic will flow through the site, making it simplified for safety coming in, through, and then having 2-way traffic back out to Wentworth. I also want to point out in the back there, that green hatched area to the north, that's a separate designated loading area. A lot of facilities these days now are going to the tote style for trash. Instead of having a dedicated outside dumpster, they actually have interior trash rooms. We're going to be able to roll out, if you will, these totes on trash day, and then be able to have the trash pickup in a separate area adjacent to other commercial spaces and not adjacent to residential spaces, which are on our eastern side of the site. So that'll also be for move-ins and move-outs, and just a general loading area and back of house. And that's an easy thing to cycle through the site and be able to go back out onto Wentworth. We also made sure that we analyzed this for fire truck movements. We got the Quincy Fire Department's biggest ladder truck stats, and we ran that truck through the site to make sure it could get all the way through without any impediments, which it can. We provided that in our plans for review and approval. We also looked again at utilities. We're fortunate that the utilities that were needed for this new building were immediately adjacent to us or even interior to the site. So they were simple extensions for water and sewer. And it really shifted our focus to look at the stormwater component and see what we could do with that. So the last slide I'll talk about is the proposed utilities. As I mentioned, easy extension for water out to Wentworth. Electrical is in the back there to the north. There's a transformer that connects out to Hancock Street that we should be able to extend into the site for our primary use. There'll also be a generator back there at the back of the building, away from the residential abutters, but closer to the commercial side. And then what you see in green is the existing stormwater. That big box, that is an underground infiltration system that was just installed less than 10 years ago. So we really wanted to utilize that, take advantage of it, and not disrupt it with our new construction. What we wanted to do in our approach was, let's reduce the amount of impervious coverage, let's reduce the rate and the volume leaving the site, because everything goes out to Clay Street right now. It had before the last project, it still does, and with our redevelopment, we're still gonna maintain our storm sewer overflows to Clay Street. This was our initial first pass, and we certainly had an improvement, even with all this redevelopment on the stormwater. But as Ed had mentioned, we did have a meeting subsequent to our submission and met with some of the engineering staff from the city, but also consultants, and were asked to sharpen our pencils and see if there was something in addition, even fully realizing that we are in compliance with Mass Stormwater guidelines and your local guidelines. We heard the problems, frankly, of this neighborhood, and were asked to see if we could do anything additional, understanding that we have site constraints with groundwater, soil types, things like that. But I feel confident we'll be able to do a little bit more on the site to further help with the mitigation of stormwater, and we'll be doing that within the next probably month or so before you see another plan set. And with that, I'm going to hand it off to Jonathan Law from our office.
Thank you, Jesse. Good evening, everyone. Jonathan Law from Weston Sampson. I'm part of the design group. And I will talk a little bit about the site amenities that we've developed as part of this proposal. So as Jesse mentioned, there's existing access from Clay Street that comes through one way. You can see the new parking spaces, the area highlighted here. Does this? No, it doesn't work. You can see, so number 3 is the drop-off that he mentioned, and we're trying to enhance these spaces by including different types of materials, so not bituminous, so visually you know that that's the drop-off space, and again, visually you know that the crossing between Senator Tobin Towers and the new proposed building is that space right there. When we approached this, I'd say problem, the solutions we came up with was how can we connect these two buildings so they feel like they talk to each other and they're part of the same site. And we've done that by using materiality on both sites that match and talk to each other again. So we're emphasizing entrances and exit points from the buildings and connections to those buildings by using specialty pavers. They may be, in some instances, permeable. So again, thinking about low impact development ways of how we can deal with stormwater. We have a few areas where we're incorporating some rain garden planters, again, to think about stormwater. Also, you'll notice on number 17, there is a small green roof component to the second story of the building, and adjacent to that, again, because the site is fairly constricted, we wanted to provide some more amenity space to the residents of this new building, so there is an amenity terrace there that includes some movable seating, some trees, and some screening. So again, just another option for people to be able to get outside and enjoy this development. As you enter the main building on the Clay Street residence, there's a small gathering space. So again, we're thinking about how can we reduce the effects of urban heat island on this site? How can we reduce the scale of the buildings for pedestrians and people who live here? So we're trying to incorporate as many new trees as we can. And again, we've also improved pedestrian connections to Hancock, Wentworth, and Clay. Some other amenities that we're including on the top north west side, there's going to be a small dog park. We're trying to, where possible, screen this building and the neighbors from each other with some native planting. Irrigation is not proposed, and all planting where possible will be native and hardy to the environment, so salt tolerant, drought tolerant. So again, once these plants become established, the maintenance of those is relatively low. But overall, we've thought about how can we improve people's life as they live in these buildings, and we think we've done a great job. And I mean, the overall goal is to have people come home and want to feel like they're home, and we feel as though this site design helps to do that. I have a few renderings that I can just go through that give you a better flavor of what we're producing. We didn't choose orange silhouettes based on the current weather conditions, but you can see this is the main drive that comes through. Tobin Towers is on the left. The new residence is on the right. You can see the rain garden on the first level and the terrace beyond that. So we're thinking about, obviously getting the accessible parking spaces close to the building entrance. I talked about different materiality to know that you're crossing the space between, so that's not only for pedestrians, but also for cars driving down to help visually slow them down. We're thinking about lighting, so there'll be new LED, dark sky compliant lighting. This is another view swinging around, looking at the main entrance to the new development, the new building. So as I mentioned, we're trying to incorporate as many shade trees as we can and think about how people can gather and sit outside in these spaces. And again, some of the materials like the paving, we'll think about the solar reflex index. So thinking about how when the sun hits that, can, instead of heat radiating off it, it helps to reduce the effects of heat on the site. This is a new planted green space that we're including by Tobin Towers, and again, some more seating, so scattering seating amongst the development so people can take a respite whenever they like. And you can see again the green roof and the amenity roof terrace. This is the new space in front of Tobin Towers, as I talked about previously. Similar benches and ground plane materials that again match across the both buildings. So again, bringing some continuity to the design and the site in general. The new drop-off space that Jesse mentioned. This is an aerial view looking at the small amenity terrace and the green roof. And with that, I'll pass it on to Jay. I'll talk about the architecture. Thank you.
Thank you, Jonathan. My name is Jay Szymanski. I'm a principal with TAT. We're the architects for the project. As has been mentioned, we're proposing a 7-story building. It includes 94 one-bedroom units. They'll all be affordable, set aside for seniors. The entire building will be visitable by people with mobility impairments. In addition to that, 10% of the units will be set aside for fully accessible units. The building will be designed for Passive House certification. Along with that comes Energy Star compliance and also Enterprise Green Communities. We will build the building to be solar ready, which means we'll put in the infrastructure to be able to put solar panels on the roof in the future. What you're looking at here is the ground floor plan. So it's essentially an L-shaped building. The top portion in gray is parking, 22 spaces inside the building. We also have back of house spaces, the electric room in the top corner, water service room, maintenance room, trash and recycling. And then in the lower wing in the salmon color are the resident services. So you have a resident lobby, mail and package, management offices, resident services offices. There's a community room on the bottom left of the slide, and a wellness office, and then some restrooms. This is level 2. So we have 14 one-bedroom units shown in blue here. And then the 2 boxes down on the lower left are amenity spaces. So we have a computer lounge and a small fitness room. The computer lounge has access to that roof deck that Jonathan mentioned. This is levels 3 through 7. They're all identical, 16 units on each floor. We also have common laundry on each floor, access to a trash and recycling chute that leads down to the trash room on the ground floor. And then, of course, internal vertical circulation, 2 elevators and 2 stair towers. So this is just an example of a one-bedroom unit that Peabody Properties has developed in the past. Typically, they're open kitchens, open to the living room and dining areas. They use high-quality, durable materials, solid surface countertops, LVT flooring, LED light fixtures. So again, this just gives you an example of what we propose to build here. Exterior materials, so on the left is a fiber cement plank product. Below that is some brick cladding and some fiber cement panel. And then on the right side is another building using these similar materials altogether, just to give you a sense of the palette that we're proposing here. Then we'll move into some exterior renderings. So this view is from the access drive from Clay Street. The wing in front of you is the wing that has the resident services on the ground floor. So you can see the community room on the ground floor. Above that is the roof deck that has been mentioned. Brick goes up to level 6 on this wing, and then it wraps around the building at the first and second levels all the way around the building. And above that, you'll see the fiber cement plank and panel cladding. So this is now a view from Wentworth. In the middle of the slide is the entrance to the building. On the far left is Tobin Towers. You can just see a glimpse of that. Here you can see that brick piece going up to the 6th floor on the left side, and then following around the whole base of the building on the right side. This view is from the access drive from Wentworth. Again, you can see the 2-story brick base, fiber cement cladding above that. The access to the garage is kind of in the center bottom of this slide. And to the far left is the Tobin Tower existing building. And with that, I'll hand it off to Doug to talk a little bit about traffic.
Greetings, I'm Doug Osler, Weston Sampson, traffic engineer who performed the transportation impact assessment for the project. I did have some coordination with, forgive me if I say it wrong, I believe it was Allison Luff, who's the traffic engineer at the city of Quincy. So she's familiar with what was proposed and was provided in the report that we submitted as part of the application. In brief, we don't expect any major transportation impacts specific to our site because we don't expect to be generating very many trips. We are very far from any threshold requirements that MEPA provides for state requirements for traffic studies, but of course we're providing in order to document what we expect for the location. And has been told that it is affordable and for elderly housing. Typically, there's fewer trips generated by the people during the AM and PM peak hours, which we're most concerned about because they're the most congested on the roadways. The first slide I have for you, I have 5 slides to summarize some of the findings in the report, the traffic report. This first one is just pointing out a lot of the transit access that is available within walking distance to the site. As we see, you can see a little sliver where we actually have a sidewalk connecting to Hancock Street, where we can directly have pedestrians from the site onto the paved sidewalk there. Side note, it is currently not ADA accessible, although it is paved. We don't have, currently the existing site does not have the ADA compliant pedestrian ramps that go there, but which we will be providing when it comes in. But as you see in the note that we are less than 500 feet from both directions of bus route 210 and 217 marked on that map, as well as the rail station, Wollaston Station of the Red Line Braintree branch, and bus route 211 to the southwest. Both of those locations are approximately a quarter mile away from the site. If you include walking on the site and walking within the station ramps, it's a little closer to a third mile. But well within a half mile, it's usually considered to be impactful and usable for developments. And so we're happy to have a lot of, in addition to generating fewer trips, it will be offset more with easy transit access. Within the study, we were careful to, I wouldn't say careful, it's typical to be generous in evaluating the number of trips to make sure that you're overestimating, and so any traffic impact could potentially be less than what we're expecting. We didn't provide any reduction in trips, though few trips are provided for that reason. If you go to the next slide. Oh, I do it. Excuse me, I have the buttons now. All right, so this table summarizing the trip generation that we're expecting. The first row is showing the existing trips. Because we counted traffic at the driveways, where it would say that on the day that we counted the existing Tobin Towers, and the other uses on the site, produced 47 trips in the morning and 44 trips 44 trips in the PM peak hour. And you'll notice that it looks a little bit more like an office distribution, where there's actually more people going in the morning rather than going out to work, just because there's a fair amount of the Quincy Affordable Housing Authority that are actually going in and working at the location. We expect those to continue to be there, so we don't alter any of the trips that are existing there. Our projected trips are based on similar facilities as would be expected in IT's trip generation manual, which is typical to be used for projecting trips at new developments. Based on the number of dwelling units that are proposed, we're looking at 9 trips in the morning and 18 trips in the evening. So some of those would be residents leaving, and some of that would be staff coming in, facility staff. A handful of that would be working there at the counter. And then our total, we would be expecting 56 trips, total trips in the morning, and 62 total trips during the PM peak hour. That represents a approximately 20% increase by 20% in the AM peak hour and approximately 40% in the PM peak hour. And so we would take those trips and we would estimate which directions they'd be coming from, likely routes, in order to get an approximation of how they will, what to expect at intersections that we're looking at as part of this study. So in general, we'll have a large percentage going north, northwest along Hancock Street, as well as to the southeast, and then some going down from Beale Street. So some of those would be people leaving to work, some of those would be people, employees arriving to the site, applicable to our proposed development. And so in coordination with city staff, you normally just look at the driveways for the number of trips that we're generating, but because of the expectation of people wanting to leave to the northwest on Hancock Street and existing traffic concerns on Beale Street, we were asked to include the intersection of Beale Street and Chapman Street, so we did within the study. The results, it's a little bit of a full table there, but showing the level of service analysis results. So we look at the intersections, and in traffic engineering, we assign a rating system, A through F, based on the delay that is expected for vehicles at any street. It's when you arrive at the intersection versus when you're able to leave, whether or not there's a car in front of you. On average, we get the level of service result. So at all the driveways, and I don't show the driveway that just has 2 parking spaces, but on the 2 driveways that are showing there, in all scenarios that we looked at, they were all level of service A. So we're expecting very ease of use going in and out of our proposed site. And then at the intersection of Beale Street and Chapman Street, we see that the existing condition during the AM peak hour I have showing the eastbound approach and slash and the westbound approach. So eastbound stays at level service C in all scenarios that we looked at, both existing and in the future. We do consider some background traffic growth. We were asked to apply 1% growth to traffic every year to kind of include some, whether it's vacancies leasing up or if there's some small new developments in the area. We apply growth factor to just estimate. Traffic will probably get worse in the future, and how we have it. Now, the westbound approach, which would be what our residents would use going to Beale Street, the existing is level service E at 41 seconds was analyzed, and we would expect it to, you wouldn't expect it necessarily to get better in the future, but with the growth in 2029, no build condition, level service F at 51 seconds. Now, when we add our development, which adds, less than 10 trips in that direction, there is a marginal increase. We expect it to be about 53 seconds. So there's a tiny change because it is using math, so it does do some rounding there. No, I shouldn't say rounding. It does apply a slight increase, but it stays within a relative area of the level service F rating. And that will continue in the future with continuing growth to 2036. And again, with our build versus no build, it's only adding a marginal amount of delay with the small amount of traffic that we're adding. During the PM peak hour, again, the eastbound approach is level service C, and the westbound approach is existing and is projected to be in 2029 level service D with or without our proposed site. And in 2036, level service E with or without our proposed site, at around 80 seconds and a little bit more with the site. There are additional things, but I'm not going to go through all the minuscule details. The report did get to Allison, and she's reviewing that, of course. I'm happy to answer any questions.
So that's the applicant's presentation tonight. I don't think I mentioned, but obviously the relief that's being requested is a site plan review and also a special permit parking waiver, similar to the other proposals that you've heard tonight. We know that peer review hasn't had an opportunity to fully review this, as well as the departments, and we'll continue to work with them to respond to all of their concerns and anticipate that this matter will be continued till August.
Okay. Let me see if anybody has questions. Yeah, Member Shaughnessy.
So looking at this, the rendering, my first thought is it kind of looks like the prison that's over there inside Boston. I don't see any exterior areas for any of the residents to go outside, other than that little small area on the second floor with a small green space. So if I was in this tower and my brother was in the other tower, he'd be waving at me out on his balcony. I'd be behind my window going, "How's it going?" So that to me, I'm just wondering why wouldn't you consider putting the outside with some balconies or something, so it would match. Look at the other one,
Balconies?
Well, is that what's on the other ones? Looking at I was trying to see it, Clay.
Yeah, there's
It looks like
balconies.
there's like balconies on the other building.
Yeah, there's balconies on some of the clay.
Isn't it balconies the pictures show on Tobin Towers, it looks like balconies.
I don't know if you've been to the Tobin Towers right now, but the only place for the folks at Tobin Towers to go out now is out front.
So
there's
did they used to have balconies there?
Oh, but they do have balconies. There's not a lot of use of the balconies. I don't. Yeah. They all have balconies.
They all have
There's
balconies.
very little use of the balconies. I never see anyone out on.
Well, one thing's for sure, if you don't have a balcony, you'll never use it. But if you have a balcony and, your grandson or your granddaughter's coming over and you wanna go outside, get some fresh air, you don't have to go down from the 7th floor to the 1st floor to go out next to an area that's next to a hot parking lot. So it seems like, and like, as far as like the roof area goes, you mentioned solar panels for a hookup, but you wouldn't put solar panels up there when you're building it, or if you're not gonna have them up there right away, how about making this a green roof so it helps absorb some of the water runoff for the stormwater? Like in Boston, they do a lot of green roofs.
Jay, do you want to address any comments about architectural style? I mean, the goal. I think the goal here was to create amenity space on the ground level, because that's the space that's probably mostly used. I know a lot of the folks that I see at the Quincy Housing Authority, very little use of balconies. And so many of them go downstairs and they usually congregate in the front of the building. This is actually gonna improve space out back to allow for much nicer congregation areas to sit, and
The little small green space on the second
and patio
floor?
space. Jay, you can.
Am I allowed to come up to this?
Oh, yeah,
I think
yeah.
so.
So we're creating, in these spaces here, we're creating exterior spaces that doesn't exist today. We're also creating new seating spaces here, and then also in this space here. So the main, for the size of this site, we're restricted by getting emergency vehicle access through the site. So obviously that's why this road comes through here. In an ideal world, this would be a green space, a big lawn area, but we can't do that because we need fire access through the site. We need to be able to get this building on 3 sides. So that's why the road comes through. So with what we're dealing with the space left over, we have created some meaningful places for people to sit. And again, as I mentioned, they're sitting under natural shade. We're talking about potentially putting a shade structure in this space here. So in terms of having some outdoor gathering spaces, again, we're restricted with the space that we have, but I think we've maximized that within this footprint of the site.
There's also the structured patio space up here on the second level that will be utilized, and also community room space within the building.
Saw that, yeah.
So if family does come over and they want to get together, they can utilize, space within the inside of the building as well, but also of this structured space and the space on the ground.
And I'll just add that all sidewalks and paved areas are ADA accessible. So what I mean by that is less than 5%. So everything is graded at less than 5%. There's no ramps, there's no handrails, there's no stairs to get into the new building. So it's fully accessible for everybody. And right now, as everybody knows, it's just a parking lot back there with really no sidewalk connections. And as I mentioned earlier, we've improved the connections not only within the site, but to the exterior, Hancock, Wentworth, and Clay. So there's plenty of spaces for people to even walk and loop in this site without leaving the site.
Please, don't take my comments as being offensive. I know you haven't, but because I love the idea that you're gonna get some affordable housing here. I mean, that's awesome. I think it's just great. It's just that I think, okay, that's nice and elderly. I happen to be one of those at this point. If we're going at 60 and 60 above?
62.
Yeah, so if I get stuck over there, I'd like a little bit of green space, but I like the fact that you're coming in with affordable housing. I applaud your efforts. I think it's wonderful. I'd just like to see, maybe you can look at making that a green roof. So again, for water runoff, or maybe another area that could be another outside, not the whole area, the whole roof for like a common area to go outside, but maybe you could put the views would be beautiful up there, and you know what I mean? I don't know, it's just, I know you don't wanna spend a lot of money on it because it's affordable housing, I get it, but we gotta kinda make it comfortable, right? So, just that's my comment, that's all, thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Any other?
Madam Chair, I have a few
Yes,
questions.
yes, go ahead.
Just a couple of things. So when one of the gentlemen was talking about, he said that the housing authority would be coming in on a daily basis as part of the traffic coming into that building. Is the housing authority gonna be taking care of it, or is it gonna be Peabody?
Not inside the building.
So the traffic they said was gonna be coming in is to do what?
Our offices are ready.
So if you guys, so when you're responding, if you could, no, that's okay, if you could just come up to the podium, because folks are watching at home and you haven't spoken yet, so if you could just identify yourself as well.
Dana Angelo from Affordable
Thank
Housing
you.
Services Collaborative. Not inside the building. Obviously, the site is shared with the Housing Authority.
Gotcha.
So the Housing Authority and the proposed building will be coming and going on the site.
So David, are you with Peabody?
I'm with the Affordable Housing Services
Affordable
Collaborative.
Housing. Is there anyone here from Peabody? You're Peabody?
Yes.
Okay. So is Peabody self-performing the project, or will they be putting it out to bid? How are they gonna self-perform? Are they just gonna manage?
So you also just need to come up, yes, and provide your name.
I'm sorry, Madam
Thank you.
Chair, I have a few
Oh, no,
questions.
no, that's okay.
Yeah, we thank you for that, thank you.
Good evening, I'm Betsy Collins, and I'm the Vice President of Development with
I'm
Peabody
sorry,
Properties.
Betsy Collins?
Collins, yes.
Peabody will be the management company. Peabody is the developer. We do not have our own general contractor. And we, as part of our response, have NEI General Contracting as the general contractor for the project. So when we submitted our bid, we included, as part of our development team, our general contractor.
And so you've already chosen your general contractor?
Yes.
Who will that be?
NEI General Contracting,
NEI?
NEI.
NEI. Okay. Well, I hope when NEI is choosing people, that you can tell them that this is the city of Quincy, and we like to have, men and women in the city of Quincy work on projects that are being built here. So if you
As
could
part
relay
of,
that.
absolutely, as part of our response, and a number of our lenders will require us to have local participation and also MBE and WBE subcontractors.
Okay, all right. Thank you. And I have a couple more questions just regarding the project. We're gonna be using heat pumps in the project? Heat pumps? Yep. You might as well stay up, I have a few questions.
Jason Mansky from TAT. Yes, the heating will be via heat pumps.
Via heat pumps. So, and you did mention, like Mr. Shaughnessy asked, that you're gonna be doing future solar down the line?
Yep.
So you're putting up the brackets prior to, or just?
You're putting up the infrastructure to do that, so conduits up to the roof, set aside space in the electrical room for panels.
And how about the lighting in the parking lot? Like, what's the game plan for the lighting in the parking lot? We're gonna have pole lights, lights off the building, perimeter lights, what's?
So if you can see in the rendering here,
Ballards on the bottom? Yep.
These are the light poles, again, dark sky compliant, so there's no light escaping up, everything is cast down. We have some illuminated bollards here that again help to visually showcase the pedestrian crossing at night, but again, that light is cast down, so there's no light pollution coming from this site.
Right. And then with the heat, with the heat pumps and all that, and the cooling, the cooling, you're gonna use individual units, or you're gonna have a cooling tower up top?
Yeah, so we won't have a cooling tower. It will either be a VRF system, which is a system that combines a bunch of units up into one big condensing unit on the roof, or we'll have one-to-one. We haven't decided that yet.
Okay, thank you, Madam Chair.
Okay, that's it. Member Louisa, any questions?
Couple of questions, Madam Chair. So garage parking, 22 spaces in the garage, so 90 spaces outside, is that correct? Okay, so that's gonna be shared parking between the two buildings.
Right. Total is 112.
Of the 112, right, so, garage parking will be for the new proposed building, the surface will be split between both. I'm assuming that current folks, who have a current car will, or currently park in the parking lot will be given favorable permits or treatment with getting that?
Yeah, parking was a main issue of concern as we discussed this with the Housing Authority as the proposal was being designed. And what the Housing Authority determined is that because their main office headquarters are located in that location, that most of the parking that utilizes the parking spaces in the lot right now are employees. I think there's like 39 spaces that are utilized, and most of the spaces are essentially vacant at night because there's very few people within the Housing Authority that own cars. But yes, those folks will continue to have an opportunity to park, and we'll provide parking for the new residents as well. The other thing that Peabody had the opportunity to do too is analyze all of the projects that they've done, affordable housing projects they've done throughout the Commonwealth, and to analyze the demand that they have, and they determined that the parking that's being provided here will more than satisfy the demand based on their other sites. And we can certainly provide that information to this body.
Sure. Just curious.
Yeah.
What's the square footage in each of the bedrooms or thereabouts? They probably varies between the units, but.
Yeah, they're roughly 600 square feet.
Okay. Fencing along the abutters on Wentworth, is that proposed? I saw, part of arborvitaes or some kind of trees, but is there an actual fence that will be either added or replaced?
There will be a fence that runs along here, and then again, we're providing some evergreen.
Right, so but on the Wentworth side as well?
I don't believe we're not putting a fence.
Okay, it's just out of courtesy and consideration for the homeowners on Wentworth, I I mean, I'm assuming you have been in touch with those folks who've lived on Wentworth, you know, if that's fences, something that they would.
Yeah, I think
Well, there's-
a few,
there might
there's
be-
three I think there's 3 houses. This is the new development that was.
Right, but further down, is
Yeah,
that,
these folks here, well, they were certainly invited to the neighborhood meeting. I can't recall whether or not any of them were at the neighborhood meeting, but we'll certainly have conversations with
Okay.
them about any kind of proposal.
But their view is gonna be the same today.
What it is
when
now, okay.
it is now, because the building is obviously in the back, and they're looking at the existing towers.
Yep. All right, I think that might be, we've discussed that they're separate, so Housing Authority and PBD, are separate entities, managing properties separately. Will there be on-site staff with the new building?
Yes.
Okay.
Do you need more?
Nope, that's- And is there any shared space between the two buildings outside of the outside space? You know, the community room in the proposed building, or I don't know, what's the tallest floor at Tobin Towers? I don't know if there's gonna be, is there shared access between the residents? No. Okay.
I don't think there was anything this.
Okay. That's all I got.
Okay, thank you. Do you guys have any questions?
Yeah, I have one, thank you. First of all, one of the nicest amenities we have right there is that pedestrian access out to Hancock, that slot. It's just clever for whoever came up with that 50 years ago. So with the new proposal, if I come in off of Hancock, do I go through the parking garage of the new building or around the building?
No, you would come from Hancock here. And
Yep.
again, we're tree lining this
Mhm.
walkway, so it's more comfortable for people to walk down. So you'd walk down here, and at this point here, you could either go
Come-
this way up to the dog run, or you could come around this sidewalk here and around to the building, or again, you can walk out and come to the
But no need to go through the garage.
Yeah,
Well,
you know,
well, that's what I'm wondering about the people that are in the Tobin Towers today.
yeah, they would, so they would come down this sidewalk here, along
Okay.
here, and, you know, over here, and then into.
Okay, that's fine, that's fine. Again, I think that's such a nice asset for the entire property. I appreciate the way you guys have made things fit, you know, considering the requirements for fire. And on a side note, I just want to point out, we have as Senator Arthur Tobin Towers, which is appropriate. He also served us as mayor. He's gazing down on us from the wall of honor right there. Want to make sure we get this right.
He has a
But
lot of titles.
he does, continues to serve us well, but I think this is great, and thank you very much. Madam Chair, thank you.
Okay, all right, so I do have a number of questions, so I don't know if somebody wants to stand, I don't know, it'll be most helpful. The emergency vehicle access, so I understand you've done the truck schematic, but you referenced, I think, during your presentation that sometimes there's emergency vehicles, ambulances out front that are parking on Clay Street. I think there was reference to that. Is there any space where you can, even if it's making, widening the turnoff, where you can accommodate that on site so that you're not jamming up, a driving aisle, I guess? Because senior housing, you're adding 94 units. I've got to think this is going to be something that you're dealing with a lot, and so it would be nice if there was some space on site to accommodate the turnoff there.
If I understand you correctly, are you suggesting if an ambulance has to pull up
Yeah.
but get out of a travel lane,
Yes.
we would still expect them to be able to use that number 3 spot? It's 8 feet wide, and then it's 24 feet for the travel beyond that. So you essentially have 32 feet in
Okay.
total in that area for width. So even if minimum for fire truck they want is 20, so that still gives us 12
Okay.
additional. 12 feet should be enough for an ambulance to pull over and still have clear.
And that's a dramatic improvement over
Yeah,
existing conditions. So the existing conditions, the ambulances literally pull here and there in the middle of the street. Hence why when one of the comments that we had during our neighborhood meetings was the congestion that causes Clay Street. So by allowing them to pull to the rear of the site, it alleviates that congestion.
Okay. And trash pickup right now for Tobin Tower, and what's proposed for that?
So that, I'll walk up to the screen as well. So right now, trash comes out through here where that hatch zone is, and we would still accommodate that. So it's kind of nice where a trash truck would come in, back up to that, allow them to get the trash out of there, and then they would pull up through here
still maintaining what they had for trash.
I know Member Leozo asked this, I may have just not understood. So the shared amenities component, so can residents of Tobin Towers use the shared amenities that are going to be created in that new building?
No, not in the building. Not inside the building.
Okay, may I ask a follow-up to that? Why, I guess?
Because,
Yeah, you want me to do
Yes.
management?
Yes.
Just a little
Yeah.
bit?
good.
So, couple things. One is, there will be opportunities for a program and to invite people in. We will try to keep safety of both buildings so that people don't have open access between the two. If you've got, the Tobin Towers would not look forward to having 96 people have, say, the master key to get into the front door. But there will be programming done between the two properties. And with regards to just other security, some of the, like the fitness room is not really sized for a 300-person development. So we try to be accommodating with shared activities and other things, but we've also got to keep in mind the occupancy requirements.
Okay, and so, just so I understand, you might have said this 100 times already, so Peabody's managing the, let's say, the northern, but not the Tobin, or are you
Housing
managing both?
Authority will continue
Okay,
to
got
manage its building and operate it. There'll be some cooperation between us. Obviously, we're sharing a site.
Yeah.
But that's more to do with just kind of the physical maintenance of the outside buildings. And there may be opportunities that we would use the Housing Authority's current maintenance and other people as a vendor that we would hire as in lieu of going to a third party.
Okay, thank you, that's helpful. I see now. Okay, so that's fine. Oh, so I saw the benches outside. I think that they're lovely looking, very nice design. Again, this is senior housing, and I think typically people might need some assistance getting up, so it might be prudent to have some arm, what are they called?
Rests.
Oh my God, armrests, geez. Armrests, just to help, people getting up and down. So that was just a thought, might change that. Unit layouts, I don't think that there were any shown on the plans that we received, and I think it would be helpful, I understand the full unit, but the interior of the unit, the floor plan for each unit might be nice to have.
We can find that.
Okay, thank you. Question just about who's getting interior versus exterior parking spaces. Is it just going to be like first come, first serve, or is there going to be designated parking spaces?
Sure.
It's a management decision.
There you go. There'll be a couple things in factor. We will have to accommodate reasonable accommodations throughout the parking, so some of that will factor in. We will have a regulated parking arrangement, meaning that you have to register your car, you have to have the vehicle registration, and then usually what we do is some kind of a sticker thing. So first come, first serve with the modifications for reasonable accommodations is usually how it works. And then a waiting list usually evolves for something like interior spaces as you go through.
Okay. And then just a couple comments, not questions. One, I agree with Member Leoza relative to the fencing along the residential spaces. I understand their view is not changing. I understand they're in close proximity. There's a lot more development on the site. It seems like an easy give. I liked the area for the proposed parking in case you need additional parking space to set aside for that. And I actually thought, it's a tight site in terms of how many units you're adding, how much, parking is necessary. And I thought it was very thoughtful and creative what you're doing with the outdoor space, the landscaping, the trees. I didn't think it felt like a prison, but I just thought it was almost reflective kind of what's being done downtown in terms of our development proposals and what those are going to look at. So,
Yeah, it's an urban campus, right?
Yeah.
So we can't have lawn everywhere. So we've tried to, again, provide amenity spaces outside in a comfortable environment for people to use.
I think Member you guys
Just
have
one more
Yep.
question, and I should have prefaced my previous comments. I think this is a great project. It's necessary, it's needed. I think they're very dignified living spaces. With PBD in control, and I believe James mentioned this at the beginning, because the Housing Authority is not involved. PUD then has control over who gets the tenant, or who can occupy the units? Like Quincy residents, you know.
I'll come up because it's a little more complicated. So we are still governed by affirmative fair housing laws. And so what we will ask and advocate for with the state regulating this is that the maximum amount of local preference be approved for this project. It will not be an issue because there's a demand in Quincy, so I mean, in my experience, I've never had that situation. But just like we did at the moorings, which is 20 years ago, and I'm sad but proud also to say that I did that project, so, and I could live here if I chose to, so there you go. We will ask for the 70% local preference. What that means is on initial lease up, there will be a local preference overlay in our tenant selection plan. And so then when we do a lottery, this will be by a lottery, they will do a lottery and really getting in the weeds, and my partners here will probably say not to get in the weeds. This is actually gonna be 2 projects built in one building, so we'll have 2 lotteries, and they will be run. They will have that local preference, they'll draw the numbers, they will draw them within the different income set-asides, and that's how you can get your initial wait list and also your initial occupancy done to provide residents of Quincy and people who work in Quincy are included in the definition of the state's definition of local preference. So that.
Can you talk a little bit about the income levels as well? I think that would be.
Sure. And now I'm gonna need one of my other projects because I need a cheat sheet, but we will have, and I'm gonna let Dana give you the exacts because.
In this project, there's 40 units at 30% AMI. There's 51 units at 60% AMI, and there's 3 units at 80% AMI.
For the uneducated like me, tell me AMI, like give me a little like.
Oh, area median income.
I could talk about cranes and you.
Yes, so I'm gonna have to, my handy dandy notes here, right? So, 30% AMI, 1-person household makes about $34,740. That rent that's established through HUD today, that would be subsidized, but that rent is at $930 through HUD right now. A 60% rent would be at $1,861. That 60% single-person household makes $69,480. 80% single-person household, $92,640, and that rent's $2,482.
They get the top floor.
No,
They get the one with the balcony.
I have a question for Ms. Collins, please. So you guys are the Peabody's not Peabody Construction, but Peabody Properties. NEI, is that a Peabody company?
No.
It's not, no relation?
No.
So are they Massachusetts Construction Company or?
We have been here from NEI, but answer questions, you can talk a little bit maybe if you want about.
I mean, is this gonna be a steel structure? What's the construction on this? Is it gonna be steel on the bottom and then wood on top, or how you doing this thing?
It'll be 2 floors of steel and then wood above that.
Pedestal construction?
Podium construction.
Right, podium construction, okay. And you've done these before, obviously?
Quite a few.
Quite a few. Thank you. Thank you.
Sorry, I've been up for a long time, since 3 this morning, but I forgot to ask earlier. Electric car charging stations, you put them in there?
Yes.
Yeah. How many?
4, day 1, 7.
Yeah, so, I'm sorry, so could you guys just come up when you, yeah, thank you, just because people are watching at home and.
I'll
yeah.
show you where those are.
Thank you.
So we have 4 day 1, oh, I went the other way, sorry. And we have 7 accommodating, where they would put in the dry conduit and make them basically ready. So 4 right here, they'll go in, get ready up, and then you have an additional 7 that they can accommodate. And that's at a minimum that you need for the amount of parking stalls. So that's for the funding source. They require in the certification for Passive House, you actually have to accommodate 10% of
level 2 charges?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, and I do have one more, yeah,
Sorry, James Morales, Quincy Housing Authority. Currently, we're working with the state right now on a grant to put in 50 charging stations throughout Quincy.
50?
Yes.
I may have a follow-up question for you, sir, if I could. Well, yeah, while you're up, so Quincy Housing Authority, I think there was some testimony that parking is on site here for 20.
For our
20
employees, yes.
Yeah. Is there anywhere else in the city where that could be spread out?
We're actually working on a plan to do just that. We purchase a shuttle, and we run a shuttle every day of the week, and we take our residents shopping. We do a run. We take them to all the supermarkets, and we take them to all the pharmacies, and we do that every day. And there's some discussion as to having the shuttle and having off-site parking for the employees.
Okay.
So that's something that we're currently working on.
And I wanted to also mention, there's been discussion both with the church and with the MBTA to assist in maybe offering additional spaces off-site, not only potentially for the Housing Authority employees who utilize the site more often than others, but also to provide a little bit of an offset to the demand that might exist. So we think that there's already been positive discussions with the church. The church has offered leasing of spaces, certainly during construction, because we anticipate that there might be some disruption to the lot during construction, so that we'll be able to supplement that parking through the church.
Okay.
But that might be longer term as well.
Okay, thank you. All right, so I think it's time, it's a public hearing, so we'll move to public testimony. If anybody here wants to speak on it, yes, sir. And while you make your way up, I'll just let other folks know that there are sign-in sheets if you want to sign in for, against, or any other comments.
Hi, my name is Shu Chen. I live in A Chapman Street. I own A Chapman Street. So, and my aunt, before she passed away, she also lived in 80 Clay Street. So she was one of the residents. I do know this place pretty well, and one of the things is do you guys?
Oh, could you just direct the questions to me, and then we'll get answers to
Okay,
your questions after.
sure. Is it, do we consider visitor parkings in the new areas? Because every time I go to visit my aunt, there's no parking there. So the 80 Clay Street doesn't allow visitor parkings. And a lot of times, weekends, we go visit elderlies and bring them to dim sum and things like that, and dinners, and it's really difficult to find parking in that. There's only like about 4 spots actually in front of Clay Street. So usually we have to park in Chapman Street or in Hancock Street instead. So I will actually want to see if management consider have some meter parkings, like a little bit of it inside just for visitors. And it doesn't have to be taken away, people live there, but on weekends children can come visit their parents. That's one. And the other thing is, this is going to be a 7-floor buildings. I thought the limit is 6 floors on Wollaston. Is that changed to 7, or?
It didn't change, and then we have to be a variance provided by the zoning board of appeals.
So that means if somebody else also want to build a 7 floors, they also can request a variance.
Yes, they would have to request a variance. 12 stories, which is the housing authority right now, is not allowed under the current regulations.
Yeah, that's 1970s, so there's not much we can do. So that's one of the comments I want to know is, are we changing that particular height?
So that would be before the zoning board of appeals. So they'll file an application, or they might have already filed the application with the zoning board of appeals, and that's for that board to determine whether to grant that variance.
Okay. Also another question actually for Kim. So he's saying there's no forgot the word. Never mind then. Sorry, not too important.
Yeah.
No, don't worry about it. That's fine. I think that's all the comment I have. Actually, other people asked my question already, so
Okay.
thank you. Actually, pretty nice building, actually.
Thank you. Anyone else here from the public wishing to speak on this application? Okay, and it will be continued, but one question that was asked relative to visitor parking, I think, has not been addressed.
James Barathis again from Quincy Housing Authority. The parking policy that we put in place for all of our properties throughout Quincy is that the parking lots themselves are for residents. They have resident stickers. Every resident gets a sticker, and if they want to request temporary passes for any visitors, they request the temporary passes through the office in all of these buildings. And the reason why we had to do that is for many reasons. One is this location in particular was full of Quincy T parking people every day. And when we did it, it emptied out like 75% of the parking lot. So much so that we leased out the whole back area of the parking lot is leased out to the bank employees, Boxcar for people that register for the T parking, and also Kentucky Fried Chicken. So we've terminated all three of those leases as part of this project. But in order to control the illegal boarders and the people that were residing in the buildings that shouldn't have been in the buildings, we had to put in place that the parking lots were for residents only. And there's a huge parking lot across the street at CVS that people can park at, and there's also the on-street parking. And anyone is free to get a visitor pass at any time for anybody that's coming to visit, coming to stay over, whatever. We issue visitor passes on a regular basis.
Will Peabody also issue visitor passes in that same?
That would be up to them.
Yes, and what we do is also, we will have a few designated visitor spaces. We do the same thing with stickers, and certainly in more urban areas like this, we are very diligent about trying to keep the spaces for the residents. So it's a little more in this situation than it might be in some of our other properties.
Okay, great, thank you. All right, so this is a public hearing that's being continued, so do we have a date?
Yeah, and right before the date, I do just want to acknowledge it was mentioned in testimony. We did have the project engineer participating in a meeting with the city engineer, as well as with the engineer of the prior projects that this board heard this evening for the Old Colony, because they're in the same geographic area and same micro watershed. So we see the accumulation of the projects coming, as well as the city's work with the drainage in the overall Wollaston area. And I want to thank Weston and Sampson, Jesse, for participating in that and getting that good feedback. We've also have seen this proposal sort of evolve over time. The department's had a chance to take a look and provide some feedback, and we see the results in this plan that you see before you. And another sort of sneaky thing we've decided is to the peer review engineer that was on the Old Colony cases has also been assigned to this case. So he doesn't have to relearn the area, the watershed, the drainage. And if there's other development that comes down the line in this general area, the idea is, we've developed a team of sort of some professionals here to tackle some very complicated issues. So that is, I think, all pointing to, seeing these folks back at our next meeting. It's 6 weeks out. We have a little bit of time. That'd be the August 6th meeting.
Okay.
And the department's comfortable with recommending the continuance to that date.
Okay, before we continue, because I forgot this earlier too. So we are still in the public hearing, obviously. We did receive a public comment from Ross Ninopoulos that I would like to read into the record, 80 Clay Street. I am fully in support, as this project will bring 94 units of affordable housing to Wollaston and is near buildings of comparable size. More development in Wollaston is needed to attract further projects and encourage more business to locate here. So that is in the record. And a motion to continue to August 6th.
So moved.
Second.
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
So that's unanimous. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Madam Chair. We have two A&R plans in the business item. Both of them received zoning board approvals for future development, but the A&R is Ally. So just the A&Rs are just split lots. One of them, the address is 56 Meadowbrook Road. The second one is 23 Claremont Ave. So those are the two business items, and that'll conclude that report.
Motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Okay. All right, all
Thank
those
you.
in favor? Aye. Thank you.
I want the roof unit with the